Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Marvel. I'm Shazam. Chapter 21. Facing Caecilius's angry punch, Billy naturally did not shrink back. The power of Shazam in his body was fully opened. The power from Hercules and the supernatural power from Olympus the king of gods Zeus all gathered right fist. Above. A golden light flashed in Billy's eyes, the whole person flew up, and the golden light of his right fist shining brightly, illuminating the entire London holy place mirror space, and the mighty power shocked everyone present. While the black mist was rolling, cold and cruel, while the golden light was brilliant and the sky was majestic, the two sides formed a strong contrast, and the terrifying power was fiercely confronted. Before the pair of fists arrived, the entire battlefield had already set off stormy waves, and everyone around them retreated to the edge. When the battle reached this point, they were no longer able to interfere. If it is accidentally twisted in, it may be a tragic ending with no bones left. It is better to stay away and be a quiet spectator. The distance between Billy and Caecilius is getting closer and closer, and their power is getting stronger and stronger, but their expressions are different. Caecilius glared with a ferocious look, wishing to peel off Billy's skin, smoke Billy's tendons, eat Billy's meat, and drink Billy's blood. On the other hand, Billy, calm, unhurried, not sad or happy, a master style, completely exploded. Caecilius did not know how many streets, is definitely the perfect object in the hearts of thousands of young girls. Suddenly, both sides punched one after another, blasting at each other. Fists out, wind and thunder bursts, accompanied by the sound of dragons and tigers. The two fists grew bigger and bigger in the eyes of both sides, and finally met abruptly, and they were completely hardened together. Boom! With a violent explosion, the entire London holy place mirror space trembled 3 times. Everyone looked over, staring at the center of the battlefield, nervously waiting for the final result. Wow! Caecilius squirted out a big mouthful of blood, the blood on his face disappeared, and then his whole body quickly flew backwards, his right arm fell weakly and his bones were broken. The hearts of a group of traitors sank suddenly, and their boss was defeated. The morale of the original victory suddenly decayed, and there is quite a rush to go. The magicians in the temple were all excited. Billy really gave them a big surprise. He is indeed a monster who can master time manipulation, and he is a genius who can be recognized by Eye of Agamotto. At this time, Billy slowly flew in front of Caecilius, and a golden sword instantly condensed on the sling ring in his left hand, exuding extremely sharp sword aura. Caecilius stared at Billy angrily, with a complex expression, unwilling, tangled, unbelievable, etc. Even at this moment, Caecilius still didn't want to believe that he would be defeated. This result made him unacceptable and made him want to go crazy. He received the dark power bestowed by Dormammu, how could he be beaten? This is simply impossible. The sharp sword in Billy's hand was getting closer and closer to Caecilius. For the first time, Caecilius felt that he was so close to death, and he couldn't help feeling terrified. Caecilius stood up and looked at Billy very dissatisfied, but he also had more attention in his eyes, half threatening and half seducing. Are you sure you want to be an enemy of me? You will die without a place to be buried. Quote, don't you want to get eternal life? Just call Lord Dormammu, and we, and all human beings on the earth, can get eternal life. At this moment, Caecilius no longer chose to fight Billy, which was obviously a thankless thing, but wanted to draw Billy into his camp. Definitely, how could Caecilius make such a shameful compromise if Billy didn't have the strength to match it? The corner of Billy's mouth couldn't help but evoke a playful smile. If I remember correctly, in the movie, Doctor Strange, Caecilius was captured by Strange. Caecilius continued to tempt him. This is the end and the beginning. Everything is life and death. Time ends, the golden crow is exhausted, the temperature drops, and the earth perishes. But in the dark space, this is not limited by time at all. The earth can be a part of Dormammu-sama like other worlds, a very beautiful part. We will embrace life, eternal life, and we will save the world and let Dormammu, Lord of all things, handle it all. Regarding the truth of the dark space and the origins of Dormammu, Billy knew very well how it was possible to be deceived by this stupid Caecilius. Billy said with disdain, in the dark space, there is no life at all. Dormammu is not the Lord of all things, he is just a predator. Caecilius suddenly exclaimed angrily, you don't understand the greatness of Dormammu-sama, you don't even know the beauty of the dark space, you are insulting Dormammu-sama. Billy was not angry about this, but looked at Caecilius like a poor joker. It was really brain dead to be deceived by Dormammu to such an extent. Caecilius said excitedly. It was Ancient One who deceived all of us. Do you know how long she has been alive? Do you know why she can live so long? It's because of Lord Dormammu. But, will she give everyone this kind of magic that can make people immortal? No, she will never. We must kill Ancient One, destroy the holy place, and release the dark space. Billy smiled coldly. He knew that Ancient One had indeed violated the vow she had made, but after all, he insisted on the bottom line. The power of evil is not inherently wrong. When used in just things, it is the power of justice. It's like guns were originally correct, but they are used by bad guys for bad things. Caecilius was bewitched by Dormammu too deeply because of the desire in his heart, and this person was already hopeless. At this moment, Billy shook his head, and didn't want to talk nonsense with this guy anymore. I think you should die, and then the world will be quiet. After Caecilius heard Billy's answer, his facial expression suddenly became hideous like never before, distorted to the extreme because of his anger, and the anger in his chest was burning. He had good intentions and bitter words to persuade him, but the other party chose to become his enemy, so there was not much to say, there was only one battle. You forced me. Originally, this was reserved for Ancient One. Now let you see my trump card, the true horror of the dark power. Caecilius let out a violent roar, and the demon's flame burst into flames all over his body, and his thin body instantly became thinner. Especially that face became haggard, and it was as black as a black charcoal head. There was no more normal place, and the whole person had been completely eroded by the power of darkness. Billy stared at Caecilius with all his attention. This guy had become inhuman and ghost under the erosion of the dark power. But it cannot be denied that the aura radiating from Caecilius's body has become stronger and more ferocious and dangerous, as if he has become a real demon. The mood of the surrounding people eating melons changed again. The traders became excited again, seeing the boss who was showing up and seeing the hope of victory. The magicians of the temple became nervous. Caecilius's soaring strength made them feel extremely palpitations and a strong breath of death. They don't know whether Billy can turn the tide again, but they all hope that Billy can perform miracles again, and it is best to kill the traitor, Caecilius, directly and completely. Gia Gia, Caecilius sneered grimly. His voice was almost like a monster. Feeling the unprecedented power in his body, his heart swelled again. At the moment, his eyes were full of playful abuse when he looked at Billy, as if he could play Billy with his applause, but the raging anger did not change at all. I have already given you a chance, but you have chosen to seek your own death. You don't even want eternal life. You are a hopeless fool. Caecilius slowly raised his right hand, the corner of his left mouth couldn't stop rising, and a cruel smile evoked, and said in an unusually cold tone, now, you can go to death. Bang! With a loud explosion, Caecilius' right hand suddenly burned a black ball of the demon's flame. Immediately afterwards, his right hand slammed, and the demon's flame instantly exploded, and the flames jumped up all at once, causing the surrounding space to be distorted. Click, click, click. At this time, the space around Billy suddenly condensed into a transparent mirror surface, sealing off all the space around Billy. Billy's brows wrinkled involuntarily. He could feel the mighty power of space around him, but he couldn't control the power of a little bit of space. In other words, it is basically impossible for Billy to use the cross-space teleportation technique to leave this blocked space. Obviously, after Caecilius was completely eroded by the dark power, his control over the power of space became more powerful, and Billy could not compete for control of the power of space from his hands, even if it was very weak. Billy reckons that unless Ancient One comes in person, no one can compete with Caecilius in terms of space spell attainments. With a triumphant smile on Caecilius's face, he mocked, "You try to be arrogant, do you think you can escape? Do you feel the power of the powerful space around you? You are now a prisoner of mine, completely trapped inside." Caecilius looked at Billy arrogantly, with the joy of victory in his eyes. The two fists of Billy before had dealt a big blow to Caecilius and made him feel an unprecedented humiliation, which made him have to find the place back. After hearing what Caecilius said in the distance, Mordor and others, their fragile hearts sank suddenly, and they couldn't help worrying about Billy. However, Billy still has a calm face, with a faint smile, calm and confident, as if everything is still under his control. You wait, I will come out immediately, but once I come out, it means you are really going to die, so if you have any tricks, just use it, otherwise, you will die. Caecilius's face suddenly became gloomy, and Billy's indifferent calmness, and the appearance that did not put him in his eyes at all, once again deeply stimulated his heart. This is not what he wants to see. What he wants to see is Billy's panic, fear, and kneeling begging for mercy, which will make his vanity more satisfied than ever. But, at the moment, he didn't see anything he wanted to see from Billy's face. Caecilius was even more angry. I'm going to tear you up. Caecilius looked at Billy grimly, and shook his right hand sharply. Kakaka. The sound of intensive cracking suddenly sounded and madly spread into Billy's ears. I saw that the space where Billy was, like glass that had been hit hard, suddenly shattered. The darkness began to spread rapidly from all directions towards Billy's location, and accompanied by the burning the demon's flame, exuding a strong aura of destruction. At the moment, Billy's figure disappeared from everyone's eyes, and only the black magic fire could be seen. The magicians of the temple suddenly became anxious, and they mobilized the remaining mana in their bodies, preparing to rush to find Caecilius desperately. After all, Billy is their guest, and they have no reason to let Billy fight for their temple, or even pay the price of his life. At this moment, Billy moved his neck, hands and feet in the blocked space. Despite the imminent disaster, he still didn't panic at all. In terms of space spell attainments, he is indeed inferior to Caecilius. After all, he has only been in contact for a few days. However, Billy's whole cards have never been space spells or other spells. The power of Shazam is Billy's most powerful force. A smile inadvertently evoked from the corner of Billy's mouth, and his strong confidence and strength were released at the same time. At this moment, the power of Shazam was all mobilized by Billy, surgingly in Billy's body, and a layer of shining light appeared on Billy's body surface. Zzz. Immediately afterwards, a series of silver-blue electric lights suddenly appeared, covering Billy's body completely, running frantically, exuding a terrifying power like the world and destroying the earth, and instantly swept the entire mirrored space. The magicians in the temple who were about to rush to the desperate temple suddenly became excited. Billy was okay, he was still alive, and looking at this situation, it seemed that he wanted to amplify the rhythm of the move. At this moment, the magicians immediately felt relieved, and their mood became extremely excited, believing that Billy would break out of the game soon. A sharp look flashed in Billy's eyes, his right hand slammed into a fist, and the surging fighting spirit suddenly rose. Hey! Stout electric lights rushed to Billy's right fist frantically, shining with almost blazing silver blue light. The terrifying destructive power shocked people's hearts, and the blocked space began to twist. At this moment, Caecilius could clearly feel that the space he blocked seemed to be out of control. Boom! Billy's eyes widened, his raging fighting spirit broke out, and he rushed straight into the sky, and strongly overturned the ceiling of the mirrored space of London's holy place, shocking all souls. Everyone's eyes were attracted, and they stared blankly. Break! Billy cried out, his eyes flashed with electricity, and then he punched out like a dragon, thunder and wind roared, and the power of Zeus, the most domineering among the power of Shazam, burst out wildly. Boom! With a dull explosion, the blocked space in Billy's body was instantly broken, the feeling of controlling the space returned, and the cross-space teleportation technique could be activated again. Bang bang bang! In a series of explosions, it seemed that countless mirrors were exploded, the mirror space constructed by Caecilius began to collapse, and cracks spread in all directions with Billy as the center. At this time, a series of terrifying electric lights broke through Caecilius' attack forcefully, penetrated the raging fire, and appeared in the sight of everyone. Under the ravages of that electric light, strands of black mist rose up, then disappeared, and the magic fire became weaker and weaker. Boom! Suddenly, with a bang, the magic fire was blown to pieces, splashed randomly, and finally dissipated. At this point, Caecilius's killing of Billy was completely dismantled. Billy's figure reappeared in everyone's sights, covered in electric glow, majestic, like Thor came to the world, and his powerful posture shocked people's hearts. Caecilius stared at Billy in shock, with an unbelievable look on his face, shaking his head and murmured, "Impossible, impossible, this is absolutely impossible." With a sarcasm at the corner of Billy's mouth, he glanced at Caecilius with disdain. Boom! Billy exploded suddenly, shooting out like a missile, staring at Caecilius stubbornly, clenching his right fist, and the electric light burst, blasting Caecilius's forehead. Caecilius instantly fell into the abyss, a strong sense of fear and powerlessness madly attacked, his pupils dilated, and he stared blankly at Billy, who was approaching at speed, and the terrifying attack. I don't. Caecilius was about to launch a second attack, but the voice stopped abruptly. Billy's fist arrived, and with a roar, it blasted Caecilius's head like lightning. Boom! With a loud bang, Caecilius's thin black head exploded. There are no red and white things, only black skulls and gray brains splashing out in all directions. Billy stood with his hands in suspension, suspended and in the air. This battle was over. As for the remaining small gongs, it was not worth his shot. The magicians of the temple looked at Billy excitedly. The traitor Caecilius was dead, and they won. Caecilius's men stared at Billy blankly. Their boss was dead, their backbone was gone, the general situation was gone, and the idea of running away arose one after another. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, a series of explosions sounded frantically, and Caecilius's control was lost, and the mirror space could no longer be supported and was completely destroyed. At this time, Ancient One magician finally led the team to arrive. Caecilius's remaining party fled, and those who were caught were arrested. The danger of London's holy place was completely relieved. However, everyone is well aware that this incident is just the beginning. Even though Caecilius, who is the mastermind, has fallen, there will still be people who want to destroy the holy place and summon Dormammu to come. The contents of the 2 pages of the book have been leaked out, and the greedy human nature is destined to be unable to resist the temptation of darkness. Ancient One magician walked up to Billy and said gratefully, "Thank you, I will remember your help." Billy took a meaningful look at Ancient One magician, and then said, "No thanks, you should. You helped me before, but now I help you, but I still make more money." To be honest, Billy doesn't believe that Ancient One will be long overdue. The most likely thing is that she is not willing to kill the once most proud disciple by herself. Billy, who has watched the film, knows that Ancient One's heart is not hard enough, otherwise, how could the dignified Sorcerer Supreme be killed by a few traitors? However, due to the emergence of Billy, the original plot development also appeared some deviations, resulting in a butterfly effect. Caecilius died, the London holy place was saved, Ancient One also survived temporarily, Strange's rise was slowed, and Dormammu's crisis was postponed. As for how it will develop in the future, Billy doesn't know, and no one has a clear idea. Ancient One magician glanced at the holy place in London, and then said to Billy, "Just like superhero protects the world from evil, we magicians bear the responsibility of protecting the world from magic. The name of Sorcerer Supreme has been passed down from generation to generation, and I am this generation. The first generation of Sorcerer Supreme countless years ago was the creator of Eye of Agamotto, Agamotto. Ago Motors has built 3 powerful holy places on the earth, namely Hong Kong Holy Place, London Holy Place, and New York Holy Place. In this way, the 3 holy places have built a protective net for our world today, blocking the invasion of dark forces, and the duty of all of our magicians is to protect the holy place. It's like your duty is to seal the magic pupil and ensure that the 7 deadly sins cannot do harm to the world. Dormammu is the master of the dark dimension, the devourer of the universe, the destroyer of the world, with infinite energy and great ambition. He wants to invade all universes, bring all worlds into his dark space, the earth he most wants to invade. You have also seen the content on the 2 pages that Caecilius stole. It is the ritual for summoning Dormammu and drawing power from the dark world. Billy said, "Once all 3 holy places are destroyed, the space node can be opened and Dormammu can be summoned, right?" Ancient One magician nodded, and said with a dignified expression, "Yes, that's it. I don't know what's going on. It may be that the earth has been calm for too long, and the dark forces are about to move. In the future, not only our Himalayas temple, but also the Eternal Rock temple where you are, or other ancient heritages, will be or have been challenged by dark forces. We must be prepared. The situation is not optimistic. It may be more severe than ever." Ancient One magician looked at Billy very solemnly. Ancient One masters time manipulation and can see some developments about the future, but she can't see Billy's future at all. This is something that has never happened before. However, Ancient One has an intuition that Billy is very important to the safety of the Earth in the future, absolutely more important than her, and even vital to the safety of the entire universe. Ancient One hopes that Billy can grow up as soon as possible and have the ability to bear all crises. She is also willing to be Billy's guide and help him grow. At this moment, Billy couldn't help being a little uncomfortable being seen by the elder Ancient One magician, and felt that the burden on him had become heavier inexplicably. However, Billy obviously only wants to be a salted fish, with money to spend, and having with girls. It is enough for the people around him not to be harmed. As for other messy things, he really doesn't want to participate. Suddenly, Billy's face changed drastically, his thoughts moved, and the divine power in his body exploded, and his whole person disappeared directly. In the next second, Billy had arrived at the Temple of Eternal Rock. Looking around, Billy found that the 7 demon statues had all been turned into rubble on the ground. This means that it is clear that when he had the induction before, the 7 deadly sins had been released, and the guy who snatched the magic pupil had used the power of the magic pupil to completely break through the seal that old Shazam had desperately smashed. Although Billy had anticipated this incident, he didn't expect it to happen so soon. Billy knew that the guy who snatched the magic pupil would find himself under the bewitching of the 7 deadly sins, and wanted to take away the power of Shazam he had obtained. In this way, the 7 deadly sins can do whatever they want in the world. However, this is absolutely not allowed by Billy. Billy will never let the 7 deadly sins take away his Shazam's power. After all, the Shazam's power is the basis for him to base himself in this beautiful comic world. If anyone dares to pay attention to the power of Shazam, whoever is Billy's enemy. There is only one end, and that is death. Now that this matter has been confirmed, there is no need to stay here. Finding and resealing the 7 deadly sins is the most important thing next. Billy moved his mind, turned and left the Temple of Eternal Rock, and returned to the holy place in London. The power of Shazam gives Billy the ability that can be teleported to the Temple of Eternal Rock anytime and anywhere, but when teleporting back, it can only teleport to the place where it was originally. When Ancient One saw Billy appear again, he had basically guessed what it was, but he still confirmed, the seal of the 7 deadly sins has been broken. Billy nodded and said with a heavy face, "Yes, it won't be long before the guy who snatched the magic pupil will find me." Ancient One promised, "If you need help, you can come to the Himalayas temple to find me. My students will be very happy to help you." Billy shook his head and said confidently, "Don't worry, there are only 7 deadly sins, and they are not a threat at all. I can handle it. Go back to New York first, bye." After bidding farewell, Billy directly activated the cross-space teleportation technique, opened a golden teleportation door, and instantly returned to the vicinity of the orphanage. Shazam! Billy came to a hidden corner, restored to his original appearance, went back to the orphanage to report that he was safe, and then ran out quietly. The operation was just like that. Regarding the guy who snatched the magic pupil, Billy, who had watched the film, knew that that person was Dr. Shavana. A guy who has always been bullied and denied since he was a child, has caused an extreme distortion of his heart, longing for strength, longing for revenge, and a serious tendency to violence. It is absolutely impossible to lie down at home and wait for the other person to deliver it to the door. For such a dangerous infinitive bomb, Billy will not let it go, let alone escape from someone in the film. This time, Billy will take the initiative to reseal the 7 deadly sins just before they get out of trouble and before they have recovered much strength to avoid future troubles. As Billy walked, he recalled the relevant content in the film, Thunder Shazam. If his appearance did not cause too much butterfly effect, then, according to the development of the plot, the bald doctor will choose to kill his Lao Tzu and his brother at the first time after gaining the power of the 7 deadly sins. Dr. Shavana is a scientist who believed in the existence of magic since he was a child, so he was always ridiculed and attacked by his brother, and denied and scolded by his father. This matter has not changed with age, but has intensified. He once received the call of old Shazam, but he failed the test of his soul, was bewitched by the 7 deadly sins, and almost broke the seal of the magic pupil, and was expelled by the anger of old Shazam. Later, in order to obtain the power of the 7 deadly sins, he began decades-long research, interviewing countless people selected by the old Shazam, and finally let him find a way to the mysterious stone temple. That is a set of ancient graphic symbols with magical power. This also led to the following story. The magic pupil was snatched by Dr. Shavana, the old Shazam found Billy, and the 7 deadly sins successfully broke the seal. New work time. In an extremely prosperous place, the headquarters of countless top wealthy businessmen are located here. For example, Tony History of the Stark family, Stark Industries, Justin Hammer's Hanmer Industries, Norman Osborn's Osborne Group, and so on. At this time, Billy took a cup of coffee and walked around the Thaddeus Group, which is Dr. Shavana's company. At the same time, in the meeting room at the highest level of Thaddeus Group, a wonderful show is being staged. Meeting room. Dr. Shiwana, a middle-aged man with a bald head, wears a pair of sunglasses, has a thin face, looks quite cloudy, and is quite tall. Boom. Dr. Shavana kicked open the door of the meeting room, broke in unscrupulously, and interrupted the old John who was presiding over the meeting. Old John, the father of Dr. Shavana, had gray hair and wrinkled face. He looked very old, sitting in a wheelchair because of his feet. His face suddenly became gloomy. He looked at Dr. Shavana very displeased, and said in a very cold tone, "Don't you know I'm holding a board meeting? Is this a place where you are qualified to come in? Before I get angry, get out of me immediately, otherwise, I will have to let the security throw you out." Dr. Shavana's elder brother, Jesse, looks quite similar to Dr. Shavana, but has dense black hair and looks more handsome. Jesse looked at Dr. Shavana with a smile on his face, and said in a weird manner, "My silly brother, is your research project short of money? Go downstairs and wait. When we finish the meeting, I will go down and give you some charity. As for now, you should get out of this useless thing quickly, so as not to be embarrassed here, ha ha ha." Jesse laughed unscrupulously, and the surrounding directors couldn't help laughing. It was not the first time that they saw a scene like this. Dr. Shavana didn't leave, but the smile on his face that had been excited because of the power of the 7 deadly sins disappeared, and he became very ferocious and cruel. He walked slowly to the side of old John, stretched out his right hand, and directly lifted old John from his wheelchair. Boom! There was a loud bang, and before everyone could react, Dr. Shavana slammed the old John's head heavily on the sturdy conference table. Ah! The screams of horror and pain suddenly sounded, and a pool of red blood poured out of old John's forehead. At this moment, under Dr. Shavana's sunglasses, his fierce eyes flashed, and the veins of the old John's right hand were exposed, which was enough to see the anger in Dr. Shavana's heart. All the directors present were shocked by Dr. Shavana's sudden eruption. They had no idea that Dr. Shavana, who was always silent from beating and scolding, would go crazy. Dr. Shavana roared angrily, "In your eyes, do you really think of me as your son? I am like a stain on you. You wish you didn't have my son at all. Since I was young, you have either insulted or beaten me. You have never looked at me directly. No matter what, you will deny me." At this time, Jesse, who reacted suddenly, became angry and stood up from the chair suddenly. Today is an important day for officially confirming that he will take over the group. How can he be allowed to be sabotaged by his rubbish brother? Moreover, in the face of this situation, he must stand up for the first time and perform well in front of his old father, so that he can give the group to himself more at ease. Jesse also shouted angrily, "Fack, you dare to hurt your father? I think you are crazy. If you don't teach you a lesson, you don't know what your last name is." Before she finished speaking, Jesse walked towards Dr. Shavana angrily, raised his sandbag big fist, and unceremoniously slammed into Dr. Shavana's temple. Jesse looked at Dr. Shavana fiercely, not treating him as his own brother at all, let alone the slightest blood kinship. It seemed that it didn't exist at all. Snapped. Before Jesse's fist fell on Dr. Shavana's face, Jesse himself was kicked into the air by Dr. Shavana's big foot. Boom! With a dull explosion, Jesse's body slammed heavily on the hard wall, and then slowly fell to the ground, directly fainting. Dr. Shavana snorted, flicked his right hand, and threw old John back into the wheelchair. Old John screamed, and pointed at Dr. Shavana with a trembling old hand, and shouted angrily, "You beast, do you want to rebel? It's really against you. Security, security, come in for me." However, there was no security guard to take care of old John, and the security guard outside the meeting room had long been taken away by Dr. Shavana. Dr. Shavana smiled coldly and said, "Stop dreaming, no one will come to save you. Today, I want you to pay for the insult to me over the years." When the words fell, Dr. Shavana took off his sunglasses, revealing his blue right eye. This right eye is the magic pupil that Dr. Shavana snatched from the Temple of Eternal Rock. It has now become a part of his body, but because of this, there is a lightning scar around the eye. Suddenly, a thick black mist came out of Dr. Shavana's right eye. Bang, bang, bang. With 6 bangs in a row, the entire conference room shuddered violently, and 6 tall, ugly monsters appeared in the conference room. These demons were all transformed from the 6 clusters of black fog. They are the demons transformed by 6 of the 7 deadly sins, representing arrogance, rage, laziness, greed, gluttony, and lust. Roar! The 6 demons yelled in excitement. It has been a long time since they saw delicious human beings, and in each of them there are souls full of desires that they need to restore their strength. They opened their mouths involuntarily, spitting out their long red tongues, and the saliva inside their mouths couldn't stop popping out, with piercing eyes. All in all, it's just 2 words: I want to eat. Ah, ah, ah. The screams of horror suddenly sounded, and the surrounding directors looked at the sudden appearance of monsters with fear, and chose to run away. Dr. Shavana's mouth evoked a grinning smile. Don't want anyone to run away, eat them for me. Before the words fell, the 6 demons all rushed up. With a bang, without even a blink of an eye, a demon suddenly appeared in front of a certain director. With his tongue rolled, he received a delicious meal. Not long after, with his super personal ability, Billy slipped in effortlessly and unconsciously got on the only elevator that could go to the highest floor. Ding! A clear prompt sounded, the elevator door opened, and Billy reached the top floor. There is only one room on the top floor, that is, the group meeting room, a meeting room that only holds board meetings and discusses major decisions. However, as soon as the elevators opened, a guy in a suit and bright leather shoes who looked like a successful person rushed in a hurry, with a look of fear, and shouted, "Devil, devil." Immediately afterwards, a big monster with a height of at least 3 meters rushed up eagerly. However, it was also at this moment that the monster suddenly abandoned the human being and turned to look at Billy, staring at Billy stubbornly, his eyes full of raging anger. Roar! This monster screamed fiercely, and the other 5 monsters rushed over, and also fixed their eyes on Billy. All of them looked terrifying and looked extremely cruel. Billy's nose twitched suddenly, his brows wrinkled, and he glanced down at the trembling middle-aged man who was lying in the elevator. He was scared to pee. It was a waste. Shaking his head, Billy walked out of the elevator, staring at the demons in front of him indifferently, without any fear at all. Billy always felt that they should be afraid of themselves, because absolutely none of them wanted to be sealed again. Suddenly, the demon Rage, who looked the most bluffing, yelled at Billy, "Magician Air, you took the initiative to send it up. Hand over your power, and we will spare you not to die. Otherwise, I will make you better than death, and I will torture you until you say it." Dr. Shavana continued, watching Billy grin grinningly, and walked over with excitement. Billy smiled and looked at Dr. Shavana unhurriedly. "Poor boy, it's impossible to get strength from me. However, if you are willing to cooperate, then I can make you suffer a little bit less, so you should take the initiative to hand over the magic pupil. Otherwise, the same words will be given to you, and I will make you worse than dead, and forcefully dig out the magic pupil in your right eye, so that you will become that poor creature again. Presumably after you have experienced the wonderful feeling brought about by a powerful force, you must be more reluctant to lose this terrible power." Billy still looked at Dr. Shavana with a smile on his face. His voice was as warm as a gentle breeze, but it was so harsh in Dr. Shavana's ears. Dr. Shavana looked at Billy coldly, his eyes were fierce and murderous. As Billy said, after experiencing the wonderful pleasure of power, how could he allow himself to lose this power? It is simply an extremely painful torture. He doesn't want to live the humiliated life he once had, he wants to control everything, he wants stronger power. Dr. Shavana's face showed a smearful look, and he said fiercely, "If this is the case, then you have to suffer a bit first." When the voice fell, the 6 demons rushed towards Billy. Rage Demon is the first one to rush. It is the largest, most explosive, and full of offensive power. The huge amounts of fists are like a big iron pot. Roar! The demon Rage yelled in excitement, and slammed his fist at Billy. Finally he was able to express the evil anger that had been sealed all these years. Although the culprit, old Shazam, is no longer there, it is also very good to be able to beat up the descendants of old Shazam madly. Billy stood calmly on the spot, without retreating half of his footsteps, and slowly raised his right hand. The power of Hercules burst out instantly. Snapped. The picture freezes, and Billy's small hand steadily catches the huge fist of Rage's demon. At this moment, whether it was the Rage demon, the other 5 demons, or Dr. Shavana, all were stunned, staring at Billy in a daze, with shock in his eyes and an incredible look on his face. The demon Rage was able to knock down a hard wall with one fist, smash the car into an explosion, and smash a person into meat pie at will. But now, its huge amounts of iron fist was steadily caught by a small palm. Moreover, looking at the other's calm face, it seems that this is just a very simple matter, and it doesn't take much effort at all, so it's easy. After a brief shock, the arrogant demon laughed and said, "Rage, haven't you done it for so many years? Why can't you even deal with a small error? This is too shameful for our 7 deadly sins, right?" The Rage demon snorted when he heard the words, and didn't take care of the arrogant, but the look in Billy's eyes became more fierce, and the power on his right fist intensified crazily. 50%, 0.70%, 0.90%, 10%. However, Rage's demon's face was distorted, but Billy's palm always carried his power so easily, not weak at all. But Rage demon knows that, in fact, in this round of power confrontation, it has already lost, and it has lost very thoroughly. Obviously, the opponent's power is definitely far above it. Realizing this, Rage's demon's heart was completely shocked. They are very clear about Billy getting the power of Shazam, and it can be said that the witnesses of this matter, everything happened under their noses, and it took only a week. However, in just 1 week, without the teachings of old Shazam, how could this guy control such a powerful Shazam's power? It is unbelievable. You know, although they have been sealed for so many years and their strength has been greatly reduced, they should definitely not be able to deal with a rookie who has just gained Shazam's power. Roar. The demon Rage was angry, and directly overturned the unacceptable speculation in his heart, and suddenly raised his left fist. Hee hee. At this moment, Billy suddenly smiled playfully, turning his right wrist, directly grabbing Rage's right fist, and at the same time grabbing his left hand. Immediately afterwards, Billy strode up and exerted force on his waist. Before Rage's left fist fell, he directly shook Rage's demon to his feet. The other 5 demons and Dr. Shavana were stunned, staring dumbfounded at this super unbelievable scene. The brain went blank for a moment. It was a hell of a ghost. Roar. Rage demon roars again and again. It is easy to rage, now it is super rage directly. It feels an unprecedented humiliation, and has never been treated like this in history. The demon Rage struggled hard, but still couldn't get away from Billy's claw-like hands. It wants to attack Billy and kill Billy, but under the action of centrifugal force, it cannot control its body freely. At this moment, Billy gave a violent shout, changed direction, bulged his arms, and exploded, sweeping the Rage demon fiercely towards the other 5 demons aside. Bang, bang, bang. With 5 bursts in succession, the 5 demons of arrogance, laziness, greed, gluttony, and lust blew out directly under Rage's violent impact. This is also because these demons have just gotten out of trouble, and their strength has dropped to the lowest point ever. If you encounter the 7 deadly sins of the heyday, even if Billy controls all the power of Shazam, he may not be able to get rid of them. You know, back then, Shazam and the others would finally seal the 7 deadly sins after paying the lives of many brothers and sisters. Bang, bang, bang. Like a dumpling, a bunch of demons directly blasted the wall or window, and fell from the top floor, including the Rage demon who was originally caught by Billy. Unbearable. Billy walked slowly towards the standing Dr. Shavana, still with a friendly smile on his face. It's just that in Dr. Shavana's eyes, Billy's smile was full of danger. I thought that after he got the power of the 7 deadly sins, he would be invincible in the world, and he could do whatever he wanted. There was no need to put anyone or any law in his eyes, but he didn't expect that there are people who have such a powerful force, the power of. Moreover, he still wanted to deprive him of the existence of strength. He was born with the existence of a mortal enemy. It was simply a slapstick. However, this also made Dr. Shavana more eager to get the power of Billy, and then become stronger. Dr. Shavana grinned grimly, and slowly clenched his fists. The terrifying electric glow flew out, and the powerful divine power poured out frantically from the magic pupil. New work time. Bang bang bang. With 6 explosions in succession, a monster with 6 heads, huge amounts of, fell from the sky and smashed heavily on the square, smashing 6 big pits on the spot. Suddenly, dust and smoke were everywhere, rubble was splashed, and the surrounding people were accidentally injured. Fortunately, there were no deaths. The melon eaters in the square looked at the situation in the big pit curiously, wanting to see what was going on. Hey, brother, did you see clearly just now? It doesn't seem to be a human. Maybe you are making a movie. Bullshit, our movies are all shot in the studio. Isn't it a cult who committed suicide? Quote. The people who eat melons talked with the standard passerby mentality, and they didn't feel any fear about it. Roar. A deafening roar suddenly sounded, and then, 6 monsters covered in black aura jumped out of the big pit, and appeared in the eyes of the crowd with majesty. Roar, roar, roar. The 6-headed monster looked up at the place where it fell, and roared angrily. These 6 monsters are naturally the demons defeated by Billy, representing arrogance, rage, laziness, greed, gluttony, and lust. As soon as they got out of trouble, they were given a vicious dismissal by the heir of old Shazam, which made them feel very shameless and very angry. At this moment, the surrounding people who eat melons were stunned, staring at the 6 demons in front of them in a daze. What the hell? Falling from such a height, he is still alive. Where did this monster come from? Or did aliens invade the Earth again? You know, after Superman returned last time, the Earth was invaded by a team of Kryptonians led by General Zod. However, just before the small brains of the people eating melons hadn't reacted, another figure fell from the sky. Boom! With a loud explosion, huge amounts of tempered glass shattered, and the bald-headed Dr. Shyvana flew upside down and quickly fell to the ground. However, Dr. Shyvana is much more witty than the previous 6-headed demon. With the magic power of the jealous demon in the magic pupil, he quickly stabilized his falling figure, suspended above the square, and did not have a close contact with the ground. At this time, another figure appeared in the sky above Times Square, seemingly possessing the super ability of flight, and slowly descending towards the square in an unusually chic manner. I saw the opponent wearing a white cloak, red combat uniform, golden boots, and a golden lightning bolt on his chest. He was strong and handsome. He was definitely a superhero who could fascinate thousands of young girls. There is no doubt that this super handsome guy is Billy. At this moment, the eyes of countless pairs of women were immediately attracted by Billy, and they couldn't move away anymore, showing obsessive smiles and gazes, which made the male companion around him unable to help cursing at the sky. Fact. Roar. After seeing Billy's figure, the 6 demons suddenly roared even more angrily, their expressions as ferocious as they were, and as ferocious as they were. Boom. The sturdy legs exerted angrily. The rage demon took the lead and hit Billy with huge amounts of fists. Billy didn't show the slightest timidity in his eyes. Whether it's solo or taking turns, everyone is fearless. A smile came up at the corner of his mouth, Billy's eyes drenched, his right hand slammed into a fist, and the power from Hercules and the divine power of Zeus suddenly activated. Billy suddenly accelerated, thrust one head down, his right fist flashed with electricity, and his power was arrogant. The air was locked to the rage demon, like an arrow from the string, and violently shot at the rage demon. At this moment, Rage's demon's heart screamed, as if a large number of sharp blades penetrated the heart like lightning. His breath couldn't help but slowed down, and he looked at Billy getting closer and closer. In the next second, the pupils of Rage's demon suddenly enlarged, and saw a silver glow rushing towards it, like a terrifying thunder, with unrivaled tremendous power, blasting on it wildly. Billy's eyes were firm, his punches went forward like a thunder, and directly blasted through the huge amounts of Rage Demon's body, and then steadily stopped not far behind Rage Demon. The power of Hercules left a huge amounts of circular cavity in the chest of Rage Demon, and his eyes could pass straight through without hindrance. The electric glow transformed by Zeus's supernatural power ran wildly on Rage's body, madly destroying its body, completely covering its whole body in the blink of an eye. Boom! With an explosion, Rage's demon's body had a perfect explosion, which turned into a dark firework, which bloomed over Times Square. Dr. Shyvana and the other 5 demons looked at Billy standing proudly in the sky in shock. They couldn't help but set off a stormy sea and were frightened by Billy's punch. At this moment, they finally saw Billy's real toughness, absolutely possessing the strength to blast them with a punch. Before, they were just a small test in the mansion. In just 1 week, without the guidance of old Shazam, the opponent can control such a powerful Shazam, far beyond their imagination, and the terrifying ability is terrifying. Obviously, they never expected that Billy would go to the Himalayas temple and get the help of Ancient One. Naturally, he could control the power of Shazam much faster than he could explore. However, Billy didn't feel any pride in blasting the Rage Demon with a punch. He knew that the Rage Demon would not be eliminated so easily. The strands of black aura fell one after another, and then quickly condensed into a mass, becoming the Rage Demon again. Billy was not surprised by this. In a sense, these demons are immortal existences, but are transformed by various desires in human hearts. In other words, as long as the desires in the human heart are not destroyed, they will always exist, which is why they can only be sealed but cannot be destroyed. The demon Rage looked fiercely, staring at Billy, and slowly came to the side of the other 5 demons. The 6 demons looked at each other, then nodded, and then turned into a cloud of black mist, pouring into Dr. Shyvana's pupils again. They knew that none of them alone could deal with Billy, they had to unite. The growth rate of the old Shazam's heirs is too fast, far beyond their imagination, they have to strangle the other party before they fully grow up. Otherwise, they will have no place to turn around, and they will definitely be sealed again. This is something they are unwilling to accept. They want to be free, they want to devour human souls, they want to return to the top, they want to control the world. Billy Feng Qingyan looked at Dr. Shyvana, who was soaring in front of him. He knew that Dr. Shyvana's power came from the magic pupil in his right eye, and the magic pupil's power came from the 7 deadly sins. In other words, when all the 7 deadly sin demons have entered the magic pupil, Dr. Shyvana can use all the magic power of the 7 deadly sin demons. However, the 7 deadly sins have just been broken, and the strength has not been recovered much. Even if they add up, they may not be able to exceed the power of Shazam controlled by Billy at the moment. So, Billy didn't worry about it, but it was in his own favor, and it happened to be exhausted. Dr. Shyvana was full of magical powers, his clothes were hunting, and he slowly flew up, once again arrogantly came to Billy's body, and confronted Billy in the air. Feeling the surging power in the magic pupil, his heart is full of strong confidence. He believed that with the power of the 7 deadly sins, he would be able to slam Billy under his feet and force the opponent to obediently surrender the power of Shazam. Then, he can get everything he wants, and no one can go against him anymore, even ruling the world will become so easy. Now, under the influence of the magical power of the 7 deadly sins, Dr. Shyvana, who was already psychologically distorted, has become even darker, and his violent tendencies and desires have all been infinitely magnified. He grinned grimly, his eyes on Billy's desire for the power of Shazam had no concealment. Go to the Temple of Eternal Rock, hand over the power of Shazam, and I will spare your life. Billy smiled contemptuously. I really don't know where this old bald man is so self-confident. He is also a PhD, so many books are probably stupid. Perhaps the sudden and powerful force will always make ignorant people feel maddening and arrogant. I don't know how high the sky is, how thick the earth is, thinking that he is the most wicked one. Caecilius is a very good example. If you want, then take it yourself. Billy glanced at Dr. Shyvana disdainfully. It would be useless to say more about this kind of person, so let's just start the war and finish the work early. After Dr. Shyvana heard Billy's answer, his face suddenly became gloomy, and the other party was still so stubborn, and the pretending look was really awkward. If it is not for the power of Shazam to be passed on by both parties through the staff, Dr. Shyvana really wanted to kill Billy immediately. Dr. Shyvana's gaze instantly became fierce and cruel, and the expression on his face became even more hideous. He wants to make the shameless Billy suffer a bit, and then force the opponent to surrender the power of Shazam. But in the end, he would never leave another corpse to the other party. If he didn't swallow the other party alive, he would not be Dr. Shyvana. A strong magical power spurted out of the magic pupil frantically, and Dr. Shyvana stopped talking, and rushed directly to Billy. He wanted to beat Billy so hard that he didn't even recognize him. The thick killing intent suddenly broke out from Dr. Shavana's eyes, and the whole person's aura rose wildly, as if a terrible storm was coming. Boom! Dr. Shavana clenched his fist sharply, and the cold black the demon's flame suddenly burned. The heat in the air was swallowed frantically, and the temperature dropped by at least 20 or 30 degrees. Billy was not in danger, raised his eyebrows, and calmly responded, and the power of Shazam in his body was also mobilized frantically. With a squeeze of both fists, the mighty power of Zeus suddenly turned into terrifying electric lights and flew out. The aura of terror was not under Dr. Shavana's aura of destruction at all, and it was even more victorious. The flaming fighting spirit in Billy's heart was stimulated again, and he could let go of a fight happily again. I hope the bald doctor in front of him will never let himself down. Otherwise, it would be very disappointing. At this moment, Dr. Shavana and Billy looked at each other, and the battle immediately detonated. Bang bang bang. The fists of the two people fisted in the air frantically, making endless bursts of sound. The people eating melons below couldn't see their fists at all. The speed was too fast, and they could only catch some of them slightly. Only afterimages. From the perspective of the situation, it was clear that Billy had the upper hand. Dr. Shavana's figure kept retreating under Billy's storm-like attack. It seemed that he could only passively defend and could not launch an effective counterattack. The melon-eating crowd watched in amazement at the wonderful battle that was rare in a century in New York's Times Square. The shock in their hearts was unspeakable, and it was incredible. That kind of visual impact, that kind of inner shock, is completely beyond the reach of a blockbuster on the screen. It is simply incomparable. The people eating melons took out their phones one after another, and based on the principle that happiness alone is not as good as the others, they quickly shared the scenes on their social platforms and showed off complacently. This melon is so fragrant. Suddenly, being suppressed by Billy, Dr. Shavana was eager in his heart, accidentally exposed a flaw, and was instantly caught by Billy. The corners of Billy's mouth raised, a smile appeared, his right fist was faster, and he slammed into Dr. Shavana's head. Boom! With a loud bang, Dr. Shavana's head exploded on the spot, flesh and blood flying across, and the thick white brains. The picture was so explosive that he couldn't die anymore. However, Dr. Shavana is no ordinary person. After his head is missing, he still flies in the air, but his body is trembling violently, and he doesn't know if it is painful or angry. Then, something incredible happened. This scene has definitely become an unforgettable scene of the melon-eating people present. On the bloody neck of Dr. Shavana without a head, a brand new big bald head grew madly at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it was intact in just a few moments. Since Dr. Shavana gained the power of the 7 deadly sins, he also possessed the almost immortal ability as the 7 deadly sins. Billy's gaze flickered, and he couldn't help feeling excited. He wanted to see how Dr. Shavana's recovery ability was and whether there was a limit. With a playful smile at the corner of his mouth, Billy's fists blasted all over Dr. Shavana's vitals like a violent storm. However, without exception, no matter how fierce Billy's destruction was, Dr. Shavana was always strong, just like an immortal invincible Xiaoqiang, who could recover everything if he was devastated. Billy shook his fist and kicked Dr. Shavana out. It's really comfortable. This man's meat sandbags are really cool. Soon, Dr. Shavana completely recovered, and looked at Billy with a smug look, thinking that Billy was crippled because of his abnormal recovery ability, and had to give up the attack on him. At the same time, Dr. Shavana was excited by his almost immortal perverted body. It was so exciting for him, it was a miracle. He had never thought that he would have such an incredible ability, and the feeling of happiness could not help but dazzle his head, let alone Billy. Billy glanced at Dr. Shavana disdainfully, and couldn't help feeling that the other party was probably stupid by himself, otherwise how could he be so excited? Is it exciting to be beaten like a sandbag? Billy would never think so anyway, he doesn't have such a perverted tendency to be abused. I don't really think he didn't kill the opponent's ability. Then Dr. Shavana really thought about it, and there was a way to solve him. At this time, in the magic pupil of Dr. Shavana's right eye, a flash of light suddenly flashed, causing Dr. Shavana to smile very hideously. Billy frowned, wondering what Dr. Shavana was up to. However, Billy has no interest in continuing to play with Dr. Shavana. Although the opponent's strength, speed, reaction, etc. are all good, after all, he is still a bit worse than his own. Billy felt that it was time to send Dr. Shavana back to his hometown. Ha ha ha. Suddenly, Dr. Shavana laughed wildly inexplicably, and the magic power on his body surged wildly, and then turned into claws and grabbed the crowd in the square below. Billy's heart shuddered, and he immediately learned about Dr. Shavana's calculations, or the calculations of the 7 deadly sins in the magic pupil. Obviously, they want to swallow human souls to quickly restore their own strength. The more souls they swallow, the more strength they can recover naturally. At this moment, Billy's face suddenly became gloomy. This group of demons is so unscrupulous, they dare to kill in front of him. And also delusional to swallow the human soul under his nose, using him as the heir, right? Billy couldn't help being angry. The 7 deadly sins are completely challenging Billy's bottom line, and Billy is not considered at all. If they succeeded, it would really be slapping Billy in the face. Billy snorted, and the magic pupil of time that has never been used since obtaining it finally bloomed at this moment. I saw Billy's eyes gleaming with green light. This green light of time, which belongs to the power of time alone, is the brightest light under the stars, extremely charming. The power of time, the rule of time, is one of the most powerful forces over many forces. Green time chains composed of mysterious magic runes shot out from Billy's magic time pupils like lightning, instantly tying Dr. Shavana firmly. You know, in Billy's magic pupil of time, what is sealed is the endless power of time. Although Billy can mobilize not much, as long as he wants to mobilize, he can mobilize at any time, and he does not need any spell seal assistance. Under the chain of time, Dr. Shavana was stunned, hovering motionless in the air, even his eyes could not move. Dr. Shavana looked at Billy in horror. The time that belonged to him had been forbidden. His life had been pressed with the pause button. Not to mention he wanted to resist, he was deprived of the right to think. Billy flickered and appeared in front of Dr. Shavana in an instant. But Dr. Shavana didn't know all of this, and the picture in his eyes remained at the previous moment. Billy stretched out his right hand like lightning, and reached out to Dr. Shavana's right eye, preparing to take out the magic pupil. Puff! Billy's thumb, index finger and middle finger unceremoniously penetrated into Dr. Shavana's right eye socket, and his 3 fingers slammed into the magic pupil. However, when Billy was about to pull it out, he encountered a strong resistance. This was originally from the resistance of the magic pupil. It could feel the power of Shazam on Billy's body. It didn't want to be sealed back again, and Dr. Shavana's body began to tremble violently. Although Dr. Shavana was completely conscious at the moment, he still didn't want to lose the magic pupil in his subconscious. You still dare to resist, you can't help yourself. Billy snorted, the power of Hercules in the power of Shazam burst out, and the magic pupil was drawn out in an instant. At this time, the moment the magic pupil left Dr. Shavana's body, the 7 deadly sins inside joined the rebellious camp, and a wave of violent magic power madly impacted Billy. Selah! Zeus's supernatural power immediately blasted up, and the silver-blue electric light directly wrapped the entire magic pupil, and began a full-scale bombardment. At this time, Billy's forehead was already oozing with a dense layer of sweat. Billy's control of the time magic pupil is still too weak, and it is very difficult to control. Otherwise, even if the magic pupil and the 7 deadly sins are strong, there is absolutely no possibility of resistance. Break it for me! Billy yelled. Shazam's power exploded, and the magic pupil was dug out, completely cutting off the connection between the magic pupil and Dr. Shavana. At the same time, the power of Shazam rushed into it frantically, suppressing the 7 deadly sins that attempted to resist, so that they could no longer do whatever they wanted. Seeing the quiet magic pupil in his hand, Billy suddenly sighed, and withdrew the power of time, closed the magic pupil of time, and there was a faint feeling of weakness. Ah! At this moment, Dr. Shavana, who had lost his strength, fell from the air. It's just that Dr. Shavana's eyes were staring at the magic pupil in Billy's hand, full of naked desire, and his facial expression was extremely hideous and distorted. Give it back to me, give it back to me. Dr. Shavana waved his hands frantically, roared again and again, and his eyes were red. Boom! Dr. Shavana fell heavily on Times Square in New York, and suffered comminuted fractures all over his body. Blood shed instantly on the ground, but his eyes were round. Billy didn't bother to take a look. This kind of scum is not a shame. With a movement of his mind, Billy directly used the power of Shazam to teleport to the Temple of Eternal Rock. Billy placed the magic pupil on the stone pillar, injected the power of Shazam, and activated the sealing circle. A huge amounts of six-pointed star magic array appeared at Billy's feet, shining brightly, exuding an ancient and mysterious and powerful aura, waved out a magic light curtain, and sealed the magic pupil again. Immediately afterwards, 7 groups of black mist spewed out from the magic pupils, and once again turned into 7 stone statues, standing quietly on both sides of the temple. At this point, the magic pupil was retracted, and the 7 deadly sins were sealed, and old Shazam could rest in peace. London, an apartment. Dear friends in front of the TV, good evening, everyone. Our reporter based in New York sent the latest news. This afternoon, the Thaddeus Group in Times Square, New York was attacked by a terrorist and almost all members of the board of directors were killed. The perpetrator was Dr. Shavana, the youngest son of the chairman of Thaddeus Group. According to relevant personnel speculation, and witnesses at the scene confirmed that Dr. Shavana should have some kind of super ability. But in the end, the evil Dr. Shavana was killed by the superhero that recently appeared in New York. The outside world has not received any specific information about this superhero. Quote. Wonder Woman Diana in a casual outfit stared at the figure she got on TV, holding a group photo in her hand. It was a photo of her and Billy during World War I. Diana stroked Billy's face in the photo, nostalgic and annoyed, and said, "Why don't you come to me?" Obviously, Wonder Woman must have an unknown story between Diana and Billy. However, Billy at the moment doesn't know anything. When did he have a fate with Diana? Temple of Eternal Rock. After Billy resealed the magic eye and the 7 deadly sins, he immediately felt relieved. The things that the old Shazam explained were completed, and there was no need to worry about it in the future. Moreover, Dr. Shavana is also dead, and no one will come to trouble him anymore. Although Billy is not afraid of trouble, he never likes trouble. Billy wanted to be a salted fish, a layman, greedy for money, lustful, and full of poisons. At this time, Billy's eyelids suddenly throbbed, and the power of time in the magic pupil of time began to riot restlessly. Billy was shocked, and suddenly a bad idea arose. There was a saying that he didn't know if it was inappropriate to talk about it. Maid, you know, what is sealed in his eyes is almost the power of time in the entire time gem, and that amount can be described as infinite. If there is any accident, maybe you will die so much that there is no scum left. Is there something wrong with the infinite seal technique? Will it always be the time before the magic pupil has been used to cause the seal to be unstable? Special code. Is the stuff on that piece of gold silk paper reliable? I won't talk about cheating's absorption technique, and almost caused myself to be blown up directly. This life-saving infinite seal technique is not a copycat too. It is also known as the strongest sealing technique in the universe, which is simply shit. Suddenly, Billy's heart was full of crazy complaints. Afterwards, Billy's eyes flashed with a gleam, and he had to save his life. If it didn't work, he would use the infinite sealing technique again, and it would be able to suppress it for a while. After thinking of a way, Billy suddenly felt that he was too witty. At the same time, Billy's eyes suddenly glowed green, and the horrible power of time spurted out in chains, which was extremely shocking and made the surrounding time and space distorted. Billy was taken aback at once. He was determined that he could no longer let the power of time continue. He had to seal it all immediately, and his life was absolutely the most important. Mindful of this, Billy stopped hesitation and sat cross-legged on the ground. His hands began to seal. But at this moment, an irresistible time fell on Billy's body, making Billy's body unable to move anymore. Even his eyes could not move. Billy couldn't help panicking. "Mommy, what's the matter with this special cat? What exactly does the power of time of this riot want to do?" Although he hasn't caused any harm to himself yet, such special codes are also very scary. Billy's little heart was beating, and it was beating faster and faster. At this time, the power of time rushing to Billy more and more, almost completely enveloped Billy, forming an oval cocoon. Immediately afterwards, chains of time composed of mysterious magic runes continued to condense, and they revolved around Billy's body. The chain of time turns faster and faster, and the aura that exudes is getting stronger and stronger. Even if Billy is in full burst, it is completely incomparable. It is simply a difference between heaven and earth. The dazzling time and the green light bloomed crazily, as dazzling as the sun, and a terrifying time storm was unfolded. Suddenly, everything disappeared. The power of time disappeared from the Eternal Rock Temple, Billy also disappeared from the Eternal Rock Temple, and the entire Eternal Rock mysteriously fell silent again. The 7 deadly sins demons, who were resealed into 7 stone statues, witnessed all this with their own eyes. At the moment, Billy didn't know what was going on. He just felt the sky spinning around, as if his body was moving fast. Besides the green light of time, he was surrounded by the light of time. Boom! Suddenly, Billy seemed to hear a violent bang, and everything around him seemed to quake. Then, his vision returned to normal again. The warm sunshine, fresh air, blue sky and white clouds make everything so beautiful. Roar, roar, roar. The violent wind roared in Billy's ears, and Billy glanced down. It is absolutely 10,000 meters high in the sky, and there should be a piece of Wongyang below. If it just falls down like this, based on Billy's physical condition, it should be possible to live, but it is also very likely that Roar will die. Billy didn't feel the slightest worry, but he could fly. But the next second, Billy couldn't help but want to curse. What's the situation? Why hasn't the time force of the riot been quieted? In this way, under the power of time, Billy quickly fell downward. Gradually, a very old fighter jet appeared in Billy's sight. If Billy remembers correctly, this fighter should be the very famous Day National Fokker E fighter, with extremely powerful combat effectiveness. Definitely, it was during the First World War. Behind this fighter plane, there are more than a dozen steel battleships, big or small, with thick black smoke, and their styles are also very old. However, whether it is a flightman on a fighter plane or a soldier on a battleship, they all wear German uniforms from the First World War. Billy looked at all of this in a daze, and an extremely absurd idea couldn't help but come to mind. Am I supposed to be sent to the First World War by the power of time? After all, isn't the greatest function of the power of time just for time travel? You can go back to the past, or you can go to the future. The more Billy thinks about it, the more it feels like this. However, all of this is just Billy's guess, and it needs to be confirmed by someone. Billy was still falling. The time force of the riot gradually subsided, and he began to regain control of his body. But one thing is very bad, Billy is likely to crash into that fighter. Billy is not afraid. After all, with the current physical strength, the unlucky fighter is definitely the fighter. Chapter 31. Boom. With a loud bang, Billy's body hit the fighter's head accurately. At the same time, Billy also just completely restored the control over his body. The figure flickered, and instantly stabilized his body, hovering in the air. However, the fighter that was hit by Billy was unlucky. The engine on the fighter's head was directly damaged, and thick black smoke was emitted, and it fell quickly downward. The flightman on the fighter plane had a dumb expression on his face. He did not expect that a person would fall down from the world, and fortunately, he smashed the fighter he used to escape. What made him even more incredible was that the guy who hit his fighter could still fly. This was a joke. Billy glanced at the fallen fighter and smiled embarrassedly. In any case, this fighter was also hit by himself, and he had to be rescued after suffering such an unwarranted disaster. It's just that if you save some scum and scum that shouldn't be saved, then wipe it off. Anyway, it's a very simple thing. Billy rushed down and quickly caught up with the fighter. But at this moment, the surrounding area suddenly became foggy, and it was still very thick. Billy frowned, but continued to do what he was supposed to do. He firmly supported the fighter he had hit with both hands, plunged into the thick fog, and landed towards the sea below. The flightman sat in the cabin, poked his head out, looked at Billy in shock, couldn't believe his eyes, he was about to doubt life. Extraordinary, what did he see? A super handsome man, not only can fly, he also flies with a fighter plane and a flightman. Do you dare to believe it? The flightman swallowed in disbelief, slowly raised his right hand, and pumped it toward his right cheek without hesitation. Snapped. A crisp applause suddenly sounded. The flightman immediately took a breath, and covered his right face with his right hand. Pain. It hurts. Very painful. In other words, the scene he saw was really true. The shocked expression on the flightman's face became more intense. Immediately afterwards, he looked at Billy's eyes and couldn't help but sparkling little stars, seemingly indescribably excited. The flightman opened his mouth, excitedly trying to say something, but didn't know what to say. You know, in his era, there was no Superman, even the word Superman. So, for a while, he couldn't find any vocabulary to describe it. Billy directly asked the question he wanted to ask, and replied in standard American English, "What year is it now?" The flightman replied excitedly, "Oh, now, it is 1918, are you a national M? You can fly. How powerful is your power? It's incredible." When Billy heard the words, he thought about it for a while. In 1918, he really came to the period of World War I, and it was the year when the First World War ended. Is the First World War over? Who are you? The flightman replied, "It's not over yet, I'm Flightman Steve." At this moment, the dense fog dissipated, and the scene in front of Billy suddenly became clear. A small island, countless beautiful warriors. Suddenly, Billy's eyes met the eyes of a certain beauty standing on the top of the cliff, and then he wondered not to move away again. She has long black hair tied behind her head. She is tall, energetic and charming. I just don't know why, after seeing this beauty, Billy always had a particularly familiar feeling, including the scene before him. Billy couldn't help but recalled, and soon found the answer. This is a paradise island, a refuge arranged by Zeus for the race of Amazonian warriors. The beauty in front of her is not someone else, but the famous Wonder Woman Diana. A thought came up in Billy's heart, that she must soak Wonder Woman Diana. Immediately, Billy couldn't help feeling a little depressed. Obviously, the flightman he saved was the guy in the movie who had an unusual relationship with Diana. For this matter, Billy will never let it happen, it must be strangled to death. At the moment, Diana looked at Billy in surprise, staring at Venus. This was the first time she saw a man. Moreover, this man is very handsome, has a very good figure, and exudes a peculiar atmosphere, which attracts her very much. Billy flew quickly to the beach of Paradise Island, and threw the fighter plane smoothly. Flightman Steve was taken aback at once, but felt the speed of the fall, as well as the location and distance of the landing. Boom! As the tires landed, countless sands and rocks suddenly splashed up, and the broken fighter plane landed safely under the control of Billy's gentle force, and then continued to slide forward for a short distance, and then stood steadily. However, what greeted Steve was a group of Amazon women soldiers rushing with their weapons. As early as when Billy and him passed through the fog, the Amazon women warriors had already received the news and were ready to fight in the first place. Unlike Steve, Billy's figure flickered and came directly to Diana's body like lightning. Diana looked at Billy curiously and asked excitedly, "Are you a man?" Billy nodded, feeling a little funny inexplicably. This is the first time someone has been asked such a question. "Yes, I am a man." After Diana heard Billy's affirmative answer, she couldn't help but laugh happily. At this time, Queen Hippolyte and General Antiope were standing in front of the Amazon female warrior on their tall and strong horses. After they asked their soldiers to tie Steve up, they couldn't help but look at Billy in the distance with curiosity. They frowned, and could feel that Billy had a power similar to them, which was power from God. You know, in this world, the real Amazon warrior is not as weak as in the movie. Every Amazon female warrior possesses super strength, super endurance, super physical strength, super flexibility, and the privilege of immortality. It is called the power of sacredness and the 5 goddesses from Olympus. Queen Hippolyte felt that if she had made no mistake, the other party should come from some mysterious place in Egypt. At this moment, Billy felt 2 particularly obvious gazes, and subconsciously glanced over with the corner of his eye. On the majestic and mighty horse, 2 mature and beautiful figures couldn't help attracting Billy's eyes. The beauty headed by Diana looks quite similar to Wonder Woman, but she has long since faded from Diana's body. She looks at most 30 years old and exudes the charm of a mature woman. But the most eye-catching thing is that unique king temperament, which suppresses all the beauties around him, is the most dazzling pearl. In addition, she wore a bright golden crown on her head. Billy can be sure that this lady should be the mother of Wonder Woman Diana, Queen Hippolyte. A woman who has been alive for an unknown length of time is also one of the many women who have had relationships with the old cunt of Zeus. If it is said that Billy despises which scumbag in the American comic world, it is definitely not the famous playboy Tony Stark, but Zeus, the head of the Olympus gods. Although Billy's Shazam's power includes the power of Zeus, Billy will never become such a shameless by Zeus. He will never see one and the other, even the 7 aunts and 8 aunts, brothers and sisters in the family. Don't let it go. Billy glanced at the beautiful general beside Queen Hippolyte again. She was dressed in battle armor, heroic and domineering, and her appearance was not lost to the queen. Billy always likes to take a second look at such a beautiful beauty. Queen Hippolyte looked at General Antiope next to her and asked, "Did you perceive it? That young man seems to be the heir of the deceased." General Antiope nodded. "Yes, the breath of divine power can't be wrong." Suddenly, the tied-up flightman Steve struggled and shouted, "Let go of me, I'm not the enemy." Steve looked anxious. He didn't want to die here. He still had an important piece of information that hadn't been sent to the military headquarters, which was related to the lives of countless soldiers on the entire battlefield. A female soldier holding Steve in custody gave Steve a cold glance, flicked the spear in her hand, and slammed it on Steve's body, and warned fiercely, "Be honest." Afterwards, the female soldier asked respectfully, "Queen, General, what will happen to this enemy?" Queen Hippolyte thought for a while. "Press it down, and give me a mantra lasso for interrogation." If Steve hadn't been brought in by Billy, Queen Hippolyte would kill him immediately without hesitation. Paradise Island is a sacred place for their Amazon female warrior clan. Outsiders are absolutely not allowed to enter, let alone this news to be leaked out. Suddenly, the German warship rushed out of the thick fog and hurried towards the Paradise Island. All kinds of weapons were already ready before entering the fog. The Amazon female soldiers discovered the arrival of the German army for the first time, and Steve, who was tied up, hurriedly shouted, "They are the German army, they are the enemy, they have guns and cannons, you guys." Before she finished speaking, Queen Hippolyte gave Steve a cold and merciless look, and Steve was so scared that he didn't dare to say more. However, Steve didn't feel in his heart that this group of natives, who were all women, could withstand the German artillery attack. In Steve's eyes, these indigenous weapons are too low, and they are still in the cold weapon era. How could they be the opponent of the Steel Army? Steve couldn't imagine what a tragic massacre would happen next. Queen Hippolyte's mood at the moment was very unbeautiful, and her face was completely gloomy. She never thought that the Paradise Island, which had been calm for so many years, would be broken into by outsiders, and war broke out directly. "Everyone, get ready for battle." Queen Hippolyte coldly looked at the German fleet in the distance. Although she didn't know what those iron bumps were, she didn't pay much attention to it. Divine power, so that they are not afraid of everything. For enemies who dare to invade the Paradise Island, there is only one ending, and that is to kill and feed the fish. After hearing the order of Queen Hippolyte, all the Amazon women warriors were on alert, and the weapons in their hands were directed to the Germans, and they were ready. As the German destroyer approached, the water level began to drop continuously. If you continue to move forward, huge amounts of the destroyer will inevitably run aground. At the moment, the commander on the warship had already seen the situation on the island through the binoculars in his hand, and he couldn't help showing a wicked smile on his face. "Let down the landing ship, land all the people on the island, and catch me alive. Don't hurt our spoils. You can have a good time on the way back." The commander was in a good mood and gave orders. He didn't pay attention to the Amazon female warriors on the island at all. They were already in his own pocket. "This is really a heavenly place," the commander, who is already a fat middle-aged man, said to himself excitedly, then picked up the binoculars in his hand and looked at the female soldiers on the island. He couldn't help but sighed, "It's all superb." Under the command of the commander, a small landing ship was continuously lowered from both sides of the destroyer. A soldier armed with a long gun quickly boarded the landing ship along the rope ladder, and then slid the oars to the Paradise Island. March. Obviously, the eyes of this group of soldiers are also gleaming, and they don't look like murderous soldiers at all, but more like beasts in heat, eager to mate. Diana stood on the cliff looking at the German soldiers from a distance, frowning involuntarily, and asked curiously, "Are those people with you? Why don't they look like good people?" Billy shook his head and said, "They are indeed not good people. They are notorious German soldiers. I am not in the same group with them. They should kill." At this time, with the approach of the German army, Queen Hippolyte directly issued the order to attack. "The archer is ready." The order was issued, and a sharp arrow was immediately withdrawn from the quiver by the Amazon female warriors, and they drew their bows and arrows. The full moon was inclined at a 45-degree angle. Attack! With an order from Queen Hippolyte, countless sharp arrows shot into the sky and shot at the German army in the distance. Whoosh whoosh! The dense clusters of sharp arrows traversed a beautiful curve in the air, and then accurately hit one German army after another, taking out their lives. In a short while, the Germans had lost a half of their troops before they landed on the island. The commander's face on the warship turned dark, and through the telescope in his hand, he saw batch after batch of soldiers who were shot and killed. The female fighters are all marksmen. There is nothing wrong with them. None of the sharp arrows are shot in the air, and the distance they shoot is scary, much longer than the range of their long spears. There is also the power of that sharp arrow, which is equally scary. Basically, it can shoot through soldiers' bodies, and there are even cases where one arrow shoots 2 or 3. The commander was horrified by this scene. The combat power of the female natives on the island far exceeded his imagination. They were unexpectedly powerful, and they were simply non-human beings. At this moment, the commander couldn't help feeling a little scared. Fire me! Originally, the commander didn't want to fire the cannon, but in the face of the slaughter in front of him, he had to order the cannon. Boom boom boom! The artillery was ignited, and a round of artillery shells, driven by the gunpowder, was shot out by huge amounts of force, and quickly bombed towards the Paradise Island. At this moment, in the face of the bombardment of artillery, Queen Hippolyte and her Amazons were completely ignored. I saw a well-known female soldier with a shield stood up, walked to the front with a cold face, and raised the shield in her hand without fear, as if she wanted to resist the bombardment of artillery. The commander on the destroyer suddenly sneered after seeing this. It turned out to be a group of indigenous people who had never seen the world. They wanted to resist the attack of the artillery with their flesh and blood. It was a foolish dream and it was ridiculous. However, under the commander's gaze, this impossible scene happened. When the shell came, the female soldiers holding the shield directly slammed their backhands, and at the same time, the magical power in the body instantly wrapped the shell to prevent it from exploding. As for the artillery that has been born for a long time, the Amazon women warriors still know how to deal with it. Bang bang bang! In the series of hits, all shells bounced back at a faster speed in the direction they were flying. The commander holding a telescope was stunned and looked at the incredible scenes in the distance, with a devilish expression on his face, and a stormy sea suddenly threw up in his heart. OMG! My God! How can this be? I don't believe it. I never believe it, it must be my eyes. However, just as the commander sighed, the shells clearly appeared behind his sight, and they became bigger and bigger. Boom boom boom! The sound of violent explosions continued to sound. The destroyer was full of fire, smoke filled with gunpowder, soldiers flying, deck flying, hull bombing. All destroyers were plunged into chaos, and the defeat was set for fire, flooding, and increasing casualties. Billy watched the battle in surprise, exactly the same as in the movie. This is simply a one-sided massacre. As ordinary people, the German army is not at all an opponent of the Amazons. They can only wait for death in panic. It didn't take long for the Amazon female soldiers to destroy all the German troops under the leadership of General Antioch. Through this battle, Billy saw the sturdiness of the Amazon female warriors. There is no doubt that this is an extremely powerful team, even if it is a modern special force armed to the teeth, they are all scumbags in front of them. After the battle, Queen Hippolyte rode her horse to Billy and asked, "Are you a descendant of the Temple of Eternal Rock?" Billy was stunned when he heard the words. He was a little surprised. He didn't expect that the other party would know the Temple of Eternal Rock. But think about it. Everyone's power inheritance comes from the Olympus gods, and they have great ties, and it is naturally possible to know each other. Billy nodded and said, "Yes, I am the successor of Shazam, the Temple of Eternal Rock." Queen Hippolyte frowned. "Is old Shazam's condition okay?" Queen Hippolyte still knows a little bit about the old Shazam. The only magician guarding the Temple of Eternal Rock is responsible for sealing the 7 deadly sins, but due to severe injuries and difficult healing, his body is deteriorating, even the seal has problems, and he is eager to find his descendants. In fact, even though they have no contact with each other in these mysterious places on the earth, they all know each other. After all, this circle is just that big. Yeah, Billy struggled. but in the end he chose to tell the truth. There is nothing to conceal about this matter. Maybe you will see each other in the future, maybe they can still help themselves. Billy scratched the back of his head, and said with a headache, old Shazam should be fine. Actually, I don't belong to this time and space. I come from the future. Do you understand? Diana looked at Billy with a puzzled look, and asked curiously, future? What do you mean? Billy explained. In other words, because of an accident, I accidentally crossed over from the Earth decades later. After hearing Billy's explanation, Diana was still a little confused. The well-informed Queen Hippolyte understood. Is it time manipulation? Billy was overjoyed when he heard this. His eyes lit up. Yes, that's right, almost. At this moment, when Queen Hippolyte uttered the word, time manipulation, Billy had already understood one thing. If he wants to go back, the easiest way is to go to the Himalayas temple and ask Ancient One for help. Billy believed that Ancient One would definitely help him. Queen Hippolyte said with some doubts, this seems to be the supreme inheritance spell of the Himalayas temple. It is said that only Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One has mastered it. Obviously, Queen Hippolyte knew that there must be something tricky in this matter. However, she did not intend to ask more. She has always said that she doesn't care about things that are not of her own concern. Queen Hippolyte then asked, do you know the man who landed on the island with you? Did you also come from the future with you? Billy shook his head and said, no, he is from this time and space, but he is not an enemy. You can interrogate him. Billy is very clear about the way Paradise Island treats outsiders. If he didn't mention that the opponent is not an enemy, Queen Hippolyte would definitely let her soldiers kill the opponent immediately. Although Billy is not a great good person, he does not hope that such a positive person will be killed by Roar. The young and beautiful Diana Wonder Woman, who knows nothing about world affairs, is like a happy girl at the moment, holding Billy's hand and walking across the Bluestone Road to the palace of their Amazon warrior clan. Billy took a look at the palace. Like his Eternal Rock Temple, it is made up of huge amounts of stones, which is very magnificent. The difference is that the Temple of Eternal Rock is made of blue-gray limestone, while the Palace of the Amazon Warrior is made of yellow granite. In terms of personal preference, Billy prefers the palaces of the Amazon women warriors, making them look like the palaces of ancient Greece. After arriving at the palace, poor flightman Steve was tied up by a mantra lasso that shined with golden light, and surrounded by a group of powerful Amazon female warriors. Steve looked sad, knowing in his heart that it is absolutely impossible to escape. What makes him unbalanced is why Billy who came with him can enjoy such good treatment, maybe because Billy is not an ordinary person. Queen Hippolyte sits high on the throne, showing her domineering side, without anger or prestige, and asks solemnly, who are you? Why did you come here? Steve blinked his eyes, thinking about how to answer this question to guarantee his life and let them go back, but the accident happened. He found that his mouth was not under his control, and he responded quickly and directly, my name is Steve Trevor, and I am a captain of the Air Force of the Ying country. The army number is 8,141,921. Steve subconsciously looked at the gleaming golden rope on his body, faintly feeling as if there was a magical force inside his body, causing himself to say everything he didn't want to say involuntarily. He resisted desperately. As a spy, he had received harsh training and knew clearly that he had to abide by military discipline for every item in the secrecy regulations. However, he couldn't help but continue to saying everything he couldn't say, now I have been assigned to the Intelligence Bureau, undercover in the German laboratory to steal important information. Steve took a deep breath, flushed, and asked in horror, what the hell is this? He found that when he wanted to resist, the rope on his body would become hotter and hotter, and the magical power pouring into his body would become more and more turbulent. At this moment, Steve's heart was already full of shock and fear. Whether it was the rope that tied him or something else, everything he encountered today made him feel unbelievable, it was incredible. General Antiope said, this is a mantra lasso, which can force you to tell the truth. Steve said angrily, but it's too hot. Obviously, the heat from the mantra lasso made Steve very painful. Although he won't scald his body, it makes his body feel the painful torment of burning flames. General Antiope snorted coldly, resistance is futile. It will only make you more painful. At this time, Queen Hippolyte continued to question, What task are you performing? With a frustrated expression on his face, Steve replied obediently, the intelligence agency has received news that General Ludendorff, a high-level German officer, is about to visit a secret military facility in the Ottoman Empire. I pretended to be a German flightman and got into the flight formation. According to our information, the German army has no reinforcements. There is a shortage of military expenses and all weapons and ammunition are exhausted. However, our intelligence was wrong. The German army forced the Turks to help them make ammunition, and there was a new weapon, a secret weapon. The developer is Ludendorff's chief pervert consultant, Dr. Isabel Maru, and her brothers on the front line call her Dr. Poison. Her chemical weapons are very terrifying. According to my speculation, if Dr. Maru completes her research, millions of people will suffer and the war will never stop. Although my task is only to observe and report, I feel that I must take action to do something for the victory of the war and countless lives. I stole Dr. Maru's research notes, but it was discovered. I fled the military research base in a fighter jet. You also know everything behind. If I can send the research note I grabbed back to the Intelligence Bureau, then I can save millions of lives and even stop this war. Diana suddenly asked curiously, war? What war? Steve was stunned when he heard the words. He didn't know how to answer. People all over the world knew about this war, but people on this isolated island didn't know. Yes, that is, that war. Billy directly interrupted Steve's unclear answer. This war will be called the First World War by later generations. The German Empire, the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and the Ottoman Empire formed the Allied powers camp, and the British Empire, the Third French Republic, the Russian Luo Empire, the Kingdom of Italy, and the United States of America formed the Allied powers camp. A world-class imperialist war broke out between the two main camps. In 4 years, 27 countries participated in the war, with more than 60 million troops and 25 million casualties. As Billy told the story, the complexions of Queen Hippolyte, General Antiope, and Diana changed, as if covered by a dark cloud. Steve nodded and continued angrily, yes, there are soldiers, there are civilians, innocent people, women, and children are all killed, their guys are looted, and then burned again. Quote, I have never seen such a tragic situation. I beg you, let me go here, the end of the world is coming, please, let me go out of here. Steve looked at Queen Hippolyte very sincerely, he really wanted to stop this war. General Antiope's face was a bit solemn, a very bad idea came to her mind, and some guy came back. The purpose of their Amazonian warrior clan is to protect the human beings on the earth from the aggression of that guy. General Antiope looked at Queen Hippolyte and asked, Queen, should we let him go? In fact, the deep meaning of her question is, should their Amazon female warriors fight? Queen Hippolyte understood what General Antiope meant. As the leader of the Amazon women warrior clan, she naturally knew what this war might represent. At this moment, Queen Hippolyte was silent, and she had long been accustomed to the easy life on Paradise Island. She didn't want to involve her people in any wars anymore. War necessarily means death. Although the Amazon female warriors possess the supernatural power bestowed by Olympus, the king of god Zeus, and can live forever, this does not mean that they will not be killed. Not to mention, in this palace alone, Billy, as the successor of the Eternal Rock Temple, possesses the power of Shazam, and possesses the power to kill them. Queen Hippolyte didn't want any casualties from her people, and she did it for the human beings who had already disappointed her so much, and even hated it. Human greed, selfishness, etc., have long caused Queen Hippolyte to completely give up the guardian vow she once made, which is not worth it. At this time, Wonder Woman Diana said with excitement, Mother, I think this war must have something to do with Ares, the god of war. Tens of millions of people have died. This is an unprecedented tragedy. Only Ares can do this kind of thing. He wants to start an endless war once again in an attempt to completely destroy the humanity created by Zeus. Not only should we leave this person, we should also go with him, help him, kill the evil Ares, and stop this war. Diana looked at Queen Hippolyte with great expectation. She was looking forward to receiving a positive answer. Billy looked at Diana, who was full of warfare beside him, and she looked like this. Just like in the movie, she felt a sense of justice and wanted to kill Ares and protect the safety of humans on Earth. After Steve heard what Diana said, his face couldn't help but smile, as if he saw hope. However, Queen Hippolyte said very directly. I will never send my people to fight their battles, leaving the Paradise Island unguarded. Queen Hippolyte's tone was obviously full of anger. Diana said in a puzzled way, no, it's not like that. The human beings created by Zeus are fair, intelligent, strong, and enthusiastic. All of these are the conspiracy of Ares. We should keep humanity. Queen Hippolyte said helplessly. That's just a story, Diana, there are many things you don't understand. Human beings are easily degraded. Diana did not listen at all, and said very stubbornly, Ares is the culprit of all this. It is he who let the people of Day go to war, and the god of preventing war is the meaning of our existence. This is ours responsibilities. Queen Hippolyte looked at her innocent, childish and kind daughter with a headache, and really didn't know what to say. Billy, as a person in the future, you should know more. Queen Hippolyte suddenly gave Billy a very meaningful look, and threw the problem to Billy directly. If Ares is really at fault, then she agrees to let Steve go. But if it weren't for Ares to manipulate all of this behind her back, then Diana would stay honestly on the Paradise Island for her. This war has nothing to do with their Amazon female warriors. Billy couldn't help feeling a little speechless. How could it be on himself? At the same time, Diana and Steve looked at Billy hopefully, expecting his answer. Billy thought for a while and replied, Diana, your mother, Queen Hippolyte, is right. Human beings are indeed very easy to deteriorate. The god of war Ares just played a role in promoting it. If there were no sinful desires in human nature, then there would be no need for the Temple of Eternal Rock. The 7 deadly sins demon would not exist at all, let alone a mortal. Everything you know is nothing more than a beautiful lie weaving by Zeus as a victor. There are many things that you don't want to judge until you have not seen it with your own eyes or heard them with your own ears. The outbreak of this war is the inevitable result of the development of human society. Queen Hippolyte nodded very satisfied after hearing what Billy had said. Billy is definitely a very promising kid, and the more he looked at it, the more pleasing to the eye. Diana's smiling face drooped. She didn't want to believe that what Billy said was true. She felt that the beauty in her heart seemed to be destroyed. It was at this moment that Billy suddenly changed his conversation and said categorically, however, in this world war, the god of war is indeed really involved in Ares. Diana's eyes lit up again in an instant, and she couldn't wait to interrupt Billy, and asked excitedly, really? Is that Ares really doing the trick? I'm going to kill him. Immediately afterwards, Diana looked at her mother, Queen Hippolyte. Queen, you heard it, it is really Ares who is starting the war. We should help mankind. This is our responsibility. Billy looked at Diana speechlessly. As for being so excited, he kept talking about the responsibility at a young age and wanted to kill Ares, the god of war. You do not know. Ares, your half-brother. Billy bet that Diana must have watched the fairy tale left by the old cock of Zeus since she was a child. She had a brainwashed sense of sight, and she was still too young. At this moment, Billy couldn't help feeling that Diana should really go out and take a good look at this colorful world. At this time, Queen Hippolyte looked at Billy solemnly, and asked very seriously, are you sure, Ares really is behind the scenes controlling this war? Although Queen Hippolyte is very disappointed with humans and will definitely not intervene in human wars, if Ares really took the shot, she will definitely kill Ares with her people. As for whether the war will end after Ares died, it has nothing to do with her. Billy nodded, and replied very positively, yes, as far as I know, Ares is indeed doing the ghost, and your daughter, Diana, personally ended this war. Queen Hippolyte's face suddenly changed. According to Zeus, in the age when no gods were born, the key to killing Ares was Diana. Only Diana can kill Ares, even Queen Hippolyte and General Antioch, or even a female Amazon warrior. However, in this world, it is absolutely impossible for anyone to know this secret except for her, General Antioch, Ares, and the idiot of Zeus. Queen Hippolyte knew that what Billy said was true. Although she doesn't have the ability for people to tell the truth, it is very easy to judge whether a person is telling the truth or not. Wonder Woman Diana got even more excited, and tightly grasped Billy's hands, really? Ares really killed by me? Billy nodded with a smile, and was really defeated by Diana who hadn't grown up yet. Diana was extremely excited at the moment. If what Billy said was true, wouldn't she be the savior who saved the earth? Queen Hippolyte looked at Billy anxiously and asked, "Is the battle with Ares fierce?" As Diana's mother, Queen Hippolyte absolutely does not want her daughter to participate in the war, even if this is her birth mission. Billy gave Queen Hippolyte a reassuring look, and replied very confidently, "Diana alone is enough. You don't even need to send an army of Amazonian warriors. Moreover, if Diana participates in the war, I will definitely help her, and will never let her suffer any unnecessary harm, I want you to promise." Queen Hippolyte breathed a sigh of relief. Compared to her daughter, Diana, who had never been in the world, she was more willing to believe in Billy. After thinking about it, Queen Hippolyte decided to say, "Diana, bring a murder weapon. When you are ready, the three of you will set out." Diana was overjoyed when she heard that. "Thank you, Queen, I will not let you down, let alone lose the glory of our Amazon female warrior clan." Queen Hippolyte shook her head helplessly, and then solemnly told, "The outside world is no better than a paradise island. After you go out, you must listen to Billy's words and don't mess around." Diana nodded, and replied, "Very well, I see." After speaking, he gave Billy a sneak peek, with a shy smile on his face. After seeing Diana's appearance, Queen Hippolyte shook her head helplessly. Knowing daughter Mo Ruamu, it's really not a female college student. Queen Hippolyte looked at Billy again, and solemnly said, "Diana, please give it to you." I don't know why, Billy feels a little weird, but I have to say that he is still very happy in his heart, and he hurries his feet a little bit crookedly. "Don't worry, I will take care of her." Before he finished speaking, Billy felt that what he said seemed a little weird. Queen Hippolyte looked at Steve, who was tied up below. She didn't have a good face for this human being, and it was good enough not to kill him directly. "Untie, take it, watch him, don't let him run around, let him be a guide when Billy and Diana are ready." Queen Hippolyte waved her hand and directly ordered a female soldier below. "Yes, yes." The female soldier put away the mantra lasso, gave Steve a stern look, and then led him down. Steve didn't dare to resist after seeing how powerful these Amazon women warriors were, especially when he was glared just now. His eyes were full of warnings. He believes that as long as he makes a little bit of action, he might be beaten and disabled immediately. It is better to be a guide safely, at least to be able to safely leave this so-called paradise island. For Steve, this is simply Devil Island. But are they true? Is this war really caused by Ares, the god of war? Steve would never believe in the existence of these myths. However, everything he encountered today made him know one thing clearly. This world is definitely not as simple as he knew. Maybe the characters in the myths are real. Diana was taken away by Queen Hippolyte, and Billy wandered boringly in heaven. After a round of shopping, Billy saw that Diana hadn't come to look for him, so he ran to the hot spring alone, took off his clothes, only a pair of pants, jumped in with a puff, soaked in the hot spring comfortably, and enjoyed it happily. Stand up. I don't know how long it took. Just when Billy was about to fall asleep, Diana ran in. Diana looked curiously at Billy's sturdy body immersed in the crystal-clear hot springs. Seeing Billy opened his eyes, she asked curiously, "Are you atypical of your gender?" After speaking, Diana was not as shy as before, but Tsunere looked at Billy. After Billy heard such a unique question, he couldn't help but was stunned, touched his chin, and replied very confidently, "I think, absolutely yes, he looks super handsome, has a great body, and is the best one." Quote. Just kidding, Billy is quite confident about the transformed self. If anyone dares to refuse, he will slap Roar without killing him. However, if Diana was allowed to see what she looked like in a non-transformed state, it would seem a bit unfunny. After all, under normal circumstances, Billy is a little boy who has not yet fully developed. Diana smiled and said, "I think so, much more handsome than those from the day country I saw today." Billy felt Diana's gaze constantly looking at him, and he was quite proud. He was really charming and unstoppable. Immediately, Billy asked with some confusion, "Can I ask you a question?" Diana nodded happily, "Definitely, you can ask." Billy asked very curiously, "You really don't have a man here?" "No man has ever broken in." Diana replied very positively, "Yes, you are the first man I have ever met, and the first person to break in here." Billy understood. It seemed that he was a national treasure as precious as a panda in Diana's eyes. As expected, this paradise island is an isolated place like the one described in the movie. To make an analogy, he is now like a Tang Sang who has come to the daughter country. Billy then asked, "Have you guys been out too?" Diana nodded again, with a look of yearning in her eyes. "Yes, I have never been out before, and I really want to go outside to take a look. Can you tell me what the outside world is like?" Quote. After speaking, Diana looked at Billy very expectantly. Billy thought for a while and replied, "The outside world is wonderful, with high-rise buildings, cars and ships, beautiful clothes, delicious food, high-tech that you don't know, and entertainment and fashion that you don't know. But I believe you will like it." Diana's eyes flashed, full of curiosity and longing, and couldn't wait to see what the outside world was like. As for Ares, the god of war, because of Billy's unclear statement, Diana felt that as long as she went out on her own, she would be able to easily destroy the opponent. After Billy and Diana finished chatting happily, their thoughts moved, and the power of Shazam in the body circulated and directly teleported to the Temple of Eternal Rock. When he took a bath before, Billy felt that it was necessary for him to meet old Shazam. Anyway, he gave him the power of Shazam. Thinking that old Shazam left so suddenly, without leaving a word, he still had deep concerns about the Seven Sins sect and the Demon Eye. Therefore, Billy feels that as an outstanding young man with a grateful heart in the new era, Shazam must be able to walk with peace of mind in the future. As for whether Billy thought that way deep in his heart, the ghost would completely believe it. As soon as it went dark, the environment around Billy had undergone a 360-degree change. It was still that magnificent blue-gray palace, with rows of fires burning blazingly, and the fiery flames shining brightly inside and outside the entire temple. Billy walked in with a little excitement in his heart, guessing what kind of expression the old Shazam will show after seeing him later. It must be very exciting. Step to step, the crisp sound of footsteps slowly passed into old Shazam's ears, and the voice seemed clear to everyone in the empty and silent temple, and it was even a bit infiltrating. Old Shazam opened his eyes. In order to delay the injury on his body, he has already entered a semi-dormant state, trying to maintain his strength as much as possible, in order to be able to seal the 7 deadly sins for a longer time. The smiling figure of Billy appeared in the eyes of old Shazam, and there was also a grateful and somewhat mischievous voice, "Master, long time no see." Old Shazam looked at Billy dumbfounded, with a look of shock, doubt, and disbelief in his eyes. He blinked his eyes twice, thinking that everything was an illusion. "What's the situation, Master? When did I accept disciples?" However, the power of that Shazam. Billy gazed at the wonderful expression on old Shazam's face enthusiastically. It was really wonderful. "Occasionally I skin it, it feels really good, so cool." Billy looked at the old Shazam. The old Shazam at the moment was very different from the old Shazam who passed the power to him. Although his face was slightly pale and lacked a bit of blood, his spirit was quite good, and his hair was only slightly gray, and most of them were black. Especially the mighty powerful magician, as fierce as a huge wave, not in the least under Ancient One and Queen Hippolyte. But what I saw before was gray-haired, wrinkled, and about to die. After passing the power to himself, he was completely gone, and the hero was in sorrow. Billy feels a little bit embarrassed in his heart. A powerful magician, in order to seal the duty of the 7 deadly sins, has spent all his life, even marrying a wife and having children, and having no joy in the world. Old Shazam is great and worthy of praise. It's just that Billy thinks it's better not to follow him. The corner of his eyes inadvertently prejudiced the stone statues of the 7 deadly sins on both sides. Although the demonic energy was lingering and constantly impacting the seal, there were no cracks on it and the eyes did not open. But Billy knew that everything was coming soon. At this moment, old Shazam frowned, looked at Billy and asked suspiciously, "Are you my disciple?" Billy nodded and replied seriously, "Yes, Master, my name is Billy. From time and space decades later, I am the heir to your strength." "I know, it sounds incredible and unbelievable, but it's all true, and I can explain it to you. Presumably you have already felt that, due to the deteriorating injury of yours, the 7 deadly sins will surely break out, and the specific time will be decades later. In order to reseal the 7 deadly sins, you have to find an heir. As a result, I was very fortunate to be selected by you and possess the power of your Shazam. However, after you pass the power of Shazam to me, you could no longer hold on and passed away, so I came here specially. I just want to tell you that in the future, the 7 deadly sins and demons have been resealed by me, and I haven't let them cause disasters in the world. You can rest assured. Old Shazam gradually understood, and he couldn't help showing a gratified smile on his face. Okay, very good, you did a good job. It seems that I didn't choose the wrong person in the future. With regard to his physical condition and the fact that his sin was about to break the seal, old Shazam was naturally clear, and he knew very well that it was inevitable to find a new heir to the Eternal Rock Temple. Feeling the familiar power of Billy, the old Shazam's heart was inexplicably cordial, completely believing in everything Billy said, and couldn't do it. Old Shazam said with a touch of emotion, I haven't taught you anything, but I have directly burdened you with a heavy responsibility. I am ashamed of my teacher. Thank you for coming and telling me all this. If the day comes, I will definitely no regrets, thank you. Billy couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed after hearing the heartfelt words of old Shazam. Sure enough, it is a great magician with a lofty soul, and this self-cultivation is truly incomparable. Actually, I didn't come here to see you on purpose. If it were not for the power of time to riot, how could I have come over? Anyway, I just said it casually. Since your old man believes it, then I definitely accept your gratitude. At this moment, old Shazam silently recorded Billy's soul breath, and when the 7 deadly sins were about to be broken, he didn't need to rush to find a suitable heir, and he could get it done directly with a tracking curse. Billy never thought that his fate of obtaining Shazam's power was already doomed at this moment. If he hadn't traveled to the American comics world, Billy, it would be absolutely impossible to obtain the power of Shazam. The only thing that old Shazam didn't expect was that the Billy he saw in the future was so young. No wonder he hadn't found him for so many years before, so he was so anxious that Billy had been killed and found a lot of people. Stand the test again. It is precisely because of today's meeting that after meeting Billy in the future, Shazam, without any test, directly inherited Shazam's power and left with peace of mind. Old Shazam looked at Billy and thought about it for a moment. As a teacher, you see that your control of power is still very shallow. Responsibility. Billy was delighted. Since your old man proposed it first, then I will just follow along. To be honest, improving strength is Billy's real intention here. Although Ancient One has taught Billy, the power systems of the 2 parties are different after all. Billy can be sure of one thing. In terms of instructing himself on how to control the power of Shazam, Ancient One is definitely not as strong as the old Shazam, and it is not even a star. However, Billy did not directly agree, but hesitation thought, Master, how long will it take me to fully grasp your power? I don't have much time. Now a large-scale war has broken out in the outside world. I have promised the queen of the Amazon female warrior clan to help her daughter grow up as soon as possible and solve Ares, the god of war behind the scenes. In addition, I came here through the journey with the help of Ancient One's power of time. There is not much time to stay in this time and space, and it is possible to leave at any time. Billy didn't blush, didn't breathe, and sternly said a half-true and half-false reason, and it was a reason that could hardly be faulted. Even if the old Shazam went to the Queen of Hippolyte and Ancient One to verify, it was absolutely impossible to get a negative answer. One was indeed true, and the other was something that would happen in the future. Billy thinks he is really too witty, and likes it. Moreover, how could old Shazam not believe what Billy said? That is completely pulling one's face, feeling that the heirs chosen by oneself are not reliable. This is absolutely impossible. Having said that, although Billy wants to improve his strength very much, he prefers the way to take shortcuts. He doesn't want to stay in this broken temple for many years. That would suffocate Billy. How could he be willing to let Wonder Woman Diana face this sinister world alone? What if that flightman Steve was cut off? Billy couldn't help but hit him to death. He would never allow this to happen. Besides, in the future time and space, there will be a young lady waiting for him to go back. The colorful world outside is Billy's pursuit. The ascetic life of the Ancient One group of students is enough to have 1 week of experience, and Billy firmly does not want to experience it again. After hearing what Billy said, old Shazam fell into deep thought. With regard to the existence of the Amazon female warriors and Ancient One, old Shazam also knows quite well. It is a good thing that his disciples help the Amazon female warrior clan to fight the evil god of war Ares. This is a good thing. The righteous and considerate old Shazam is proud of this and will never stop it. In addition, the old Shazam is naturally aware of the matter of time and space travel. In their circle, Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One also has this ability. Old Shazam was a little puzzled about how Billy came to this time and space from the future, but now I understand it, and it must be the help of an old friend, Ancient One. Old Shazam estimated that in the process of resealing the 7 deadly sins, Billy might have Ancient One's help. Ancient One deserves the name Sorcerer Supreme. Old Shazam glanced at Billy's eyes. As the magician of the Eternal Rock, he had long perceived the power of time in it, and it must have something to do with Ancient One. He didn't ask much, Ancient One could trust it. In his original plan, he planned to let Billy stay by his side and practice for more than 10 years, decades, even until his body can no longer hold on. You know, neither he nor his former brothers and sisters have cultivated for hundreds of years or even thousands of years. The way of cultivation is that it takes time to accumulate and years of polishing to be able to be completely natural and impeccable, and to be able to better fight the evil forces in the future crises. Old Shazam also hopes that Billy can go a step further and become an existence that surpasses him, and even surpasses Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. However, the current situation is obviously a bit special, and Billy can't keep it. Fortunately, there are still special ways to solve this special situation. Old Shazam thought for a while and said, "Billy, have you heard of the Exile and Blood Orchid?" Billy was stunned. The place of exile? I have never heard of it. Blood Orchid, etc. Is it the Blood Orchid in The Anaconda? The Blood Orchid that can break through the chains of genes and gain incredible power? But isn't that in Borneo in the movie? However, these are not important. The important thing is what kind of help the Blood Orchid can bring to oneself. With surprise in Billy's eyes, he curiously asked Old Shazam, "Master, what's the use of blood orchids?" Old Shazam replied, "Blood Orchid can help you break through the limits of your own body, open the chains of life, and integrate the power of Shazam in your body faster." Billy was ecstatic when he heard that. "Good stuff, you must get it." "Master, where is that place of exile?" Old Shazam recalled. The place of exile was originally part of Borneo, or a part separated from Kalimantan. If it had not been separated, Kalimantan would still be the largest in the world, island. The place of exile is also known as Devil Island or Skull Island. It is exiled with the legendary pirates of the Caribbean Jack and others. These pirates will be cursed and turned into undead skeletons every night. Around this island is guarded by thunderclouds and storms. Normal people can't break in, but with your current strength, you can break in. But be aware that there are many ancient vicious creatures on the island, especially Kayla Sen who guards the sea god's trident. With your current strength, it's best not to provoke them. After Billy heard what Old Shazam said, his mind was a little confused. This plot seems a bit wrong. How come it feels like a pot of stew? The Blood Orchid went to Devil Island, which was guarded by King Kong in the legend, and the natives on the island turned into the famous Caribbean pirates. What's even more incredible is that the treasure of Atlantis ruling the ocean, the future Aquaman Arthur's weapon, the trident, is actually still on Devil Island. Horse sells batch. However, it seems reasonable. After all, in Pirates of the Caribbean, Jack did find the Poseidon trident. Shet, what a hell of it. It's such a chaotic beauty world. I really don't know what weird things will come across in the future. Wait a minute, now that all the tridents of the sea god that Jack found have come out, what about the old spring? Although Billy has the almost immortal ability after getting the power of Shazam, his little sister Mary will still die in old age. Billy doesn't want to see the woman he likes slowly getting old until death, but he is still young forever. That is simply a torture, both for himself and for the little sister Mary. Definitely, Billy can also empower young lady sister Old Shazam and other brothers and sisters, but the number of places is limited. What if there is not enough in the future? Billy is not a selfish person. When he was practicing in the Himalayas temple, he thought about this question, how to make ordinary people he cares about also have the ability of immortality. Especially after experiencing the London Holy Place incident caused by Caecilius, Billy has paid more attention to this issue. Time is indeed a headache. After Billy thought about it for a long time, except for the anti-aging serum mastered by S.H.I.E.L.D., he didn't think of a good way. If necessary, Billy doesn't mind robbing S.H.I.E.L.D., or the treasure house located in Sanfei. It is absolutely impossible for Billy to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. in exchange for anti-aging serum. In case S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't have any stocks, it will be a big loss. If you deal with the veteran agent of the Blackheart Bitternhead, you might be cheated to death. At this moment, the appearance of the blood orchid gave Billy even greater hope. Billy looked forward to it, and asked anxiously, "Master, does the legendary fountain of youth exist?" Old Shazam was stunned. He didn't expect that Billy would even know the existence of Belauchuan. The spring of immortality exists naturally, and the blood orchid is irrigated by the spring of immortality, so the blood orchid originally also has the ability to make people immortal. I'll wipe it. Billy's heart couldn't hold back the ecstasy. This wave of operation is really special. 666. The blood orchid was actually irrigated by a spring of immortality. It was so unexpected and so pleasant. What does this mean? As long as you find the blood orchid, you will be able to find the fountain of immortality. If the quantity is large enough, it can still be put up for auction. Those who are rich will definitely be crazy. Who doesn't want to stay young forever, especially those women, are super willing to spend money. However, being not old does not mean that you will not die, it just means that you will still maintain a beautiful appearance at the end of your life. Only being not old and not dead is eternal. Billy asked curiously, "Master, can blood orchids make people immortal?" Old Shazam shook his head and said, "No, but after breaking through the chains of genes, it often prolongs people's lives greatly. This is much stronger than Belauchuan. Belauchuan mainly just freezes the appearance at the time. How many lives will be added? In this world, except for the gods with powerful power, no one can survive the age, and even the gods have the possibility of falling." Billy nodded to make it clear, and then asked, "Master, where is the exile?" Old Shazam waved his hand, and a golden light fell into Billy's mind like lightning. Immediately afterwards, a set of information appeared in Billy's mind, astonishingly about the specific geographic location of the exile. Remember, in this world, there are many hidden secrets. There are mysterious and powerful forces in every country, each guarding different responsibilities to ensure the safety of the earth. Old Shazam warned very solemnly. Billy said seriously, "I see, Master." From the blood orchid matter, Billy has already seen that many of the comic worlds he has traveled through may be much more complicated than he imagined. Maybe vampires, ronin, witches, etc. are special codes. The presence. Afterwards, old Shazam talked a lot with Billy, about the secrets of the world, as well as about cultivation, and so on. Finally, Billy reluctantly said goodbye to old Shazam. "Master, I'm leaving." Although Billy and Shazam didn't spend much time together, I could feel that Shazam was kind to Billy from the bottom of his heart. There are few such people, no matter before or after the crossing. No wonder it is said that, one day is a teacher, and all beings are fathers, which is not an exaggeration at all. Old Shazam nodded, and said with relief and some loneliness, "From now on, the Temple of Eternal Rock will be handed over to you to guard, and you will resist the burden of guarding the 7 deadly sins." Billy guarantees with an extra serious certification. "Don't worry, Master, you will never be disappointed." Lao Shazam waved his hand when he heard the words, closed his eyes and rested. Billy moved his mind, using Shazam's power, and returned to Paradise Island. The next day, Billy, Flightman Steve, and Diana are ready to set off at the pier on Paradise Island. At this moment, Diana is fully armed. She has put on the killer suit, wearing a champion helmet, a mantra lasso on her waist, a wristband guarding silver bracelet, a Vulcan sword and a supernatural shield on her back, and she is wearing a feathered shoe. Queen Hippolyte and General Antiope rode their horses and led the Amazons to see off Diana. Looking at Diana, who could not keep her, Queen Hippolyte confessed solemnly, "Diana, my dearest daughter, there are many things in this world that you still don't understand, especially people's hearts. When you go outside, you must listen to Billy." Diana nodded. "I know, Queen, you've said it so many times, my ears are about to give birth to cocoons, so don't worry." After hearing Diana's assurance, Queen Hippolyte was still full of worry, looked at Billy and said, "Billy, Diana will trouble you to take care of it." Billy promised again. "Queen Hippolyte, please rest assured, I will return Diana to your hands intact." It's a pity that Billy's guarantee is destined to be discounted a bit. As good as ever. It seems really impossible. At this time, General Antiope also walked to Diana's body, took off the divine weapon Starlight flying crown from his head, and put it on Diana's head with his own hands. Diana, you are a warrior trained by me. You are the best warrior of our Amazon female warrior clan. I believe you can defeat Ares. This Starlight crown will be given to you. I hope it can protect you and bring you good luck. We wait for your victory and triumph. The glory of the Amazon female warrior clan will always be with you. Diana was a little excited and hugged General Antiope, who had been in charge of training her. Scenes from the past continued to flash before her eyes. Thank you, I will definitely defeat Ares. Billy waited quietly for their farewells, and Steve was honestly ready to leave the ship. After a painful farewell to life and death, Billy, Diana, and Steve finally boarded the ship and set off. However, the ship that Billy and others are on is not the boat in the film, at least it is a medium-sized cruise ship. Although it is not as luxurious as the 21st century, it also has all the necessary facilities. This is Billy deliberately using the cross-space teleportation technique to rob from the evil German side. As for flying directly to the battlefield, Billy will never do it. He has to accompany Diana more. Steve sits in the cab and is responsible for driving, while Billy and Diana sit comfortably in the cabin, drinking wine, eating snacks, and chatting. Although Steve's heart is very reluctant to accept such an arrangement, he can only obey Billy obediently because of Billy's lewdness, so as to return to the country of Ying safely and steadily. In the cabin, Billy and Diana are in the same room, sitting on the sofa. Diana asked anxiously, "Billy, how long will it take us to reach the battlefield?" Billy felt very helpless about Diana's belligerence, or the overwhelming sense of justice. "Why are you so anxious? The best thing to do is to enjoy this journey. As a girl, it is better not to mix things up." However, Billy still replied with a smile on his face, "Soon, the war has entered a truce for the time being, so we don't need to worry so much. We can walk around in the kingdom of mankind first, and then I will take you to Ares, the god of war, and let you kill that fool yourself." Through the film, Wonder Woman, Billy does know who Ares pretending to be, but Billy does not know how powerful Ares is in the real world. Anyway, in the film, the power is not fully awakening's Wonder Woman. Diana is definitely not Ares's opponent, only the part of being hanged. The most deceptive thing is that in the film, Diana's rise was criticized because of the sacrifice of a certain guy, which completely detonated Diana's anger. This setting makes Billy's egg hurt. If he can defeat Ares, it's okay to say, but what if? That's not fun. Obviously, because of his intervention, Diana and a certain guy are destined to be out of play, so in this way, Diana's power will never be as awakening as in the film. Billy is not that great and would sacrifice himself for it. So, before that, Billy must first see the guy Ares pretending to be. If you can't figure it out, you can only move to rescue soldiers. Billy really doesn't believe it. The Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One, who can face Odin and guarantee that the earth will not be violated by any forces, will not be able to deal with the god of war Ares. Even if Ares, one of the 12 gods of Olympus, is stronger, it is impossible to be better than the Norse king Odin. That is the same level as the Olympus god king. Ares is the best. One more level with Thor. Diana nodded and said vigorously, "I must defeat Ares, the god of war. He is the responsibility of our Amazon female warriors. Only we can defeat him." While talking, she took out the Vulcan sword behind her, and continued confidently, "With this sharp sword in my hand, Father Zeus left us with the sword of murder. Once I defeat him, the war will end. The human beings created by Father Zeus will no longer have to suffer the pain of war, and everything will become as good as before." Billy couldn't help covering his forehead, as expected to be the second generation of God who was born with a golden key and grew up in an ivory tower. Ordinary people can never say such a thing anyway. In fact, Billy really wanted to tell Diana some reality, but looking at the kind smile on her face that day, he couldn't bear to hit her. Ares is a true god, not your second generation of half-hearted god, nor is it a half-hearted descendant of my magician. It is not so easy to deal with. Moreover, even if Ares was defeated, the war would not end there. As a future man, Billy knew very well that not long after the end of World War I, the special World War II began again. Can you get angry? This time, there was nothing to do with Ares, and even if Diana wanted to kill Ares, she couldn't find anyone. Billy smiled and said, I admire your courage very much, but I have to tell you that this world, as your mother said, is really not as beautiful as you think. I believe that after this journey is over, you will grow up and you will understand what your mother meant." Diana, who hadn't experienced it personally, obviously couldn't listen, and said unconvincedly, "Really? Just look around. Anyway, I think this thing is so simple. As long as I kill Ares, the people of Day will never be bewitched by Ares again, and they will immediately become as beautiful as before." Billy smiled silently. "Good. If it doesn't exist, greed is the answer. One day, Diana will be slapped fiercely by reality and see this bloody world clearly. Although cruel, this is growth. Maybe this is why she didn't appear in World War II, Billy thought in his heart. Suddenly, a sly smile appeared at the corner of Billy's mouth. "Diana, don't forget, I am from the future, so it is no exaggeration to say that I know you better than you." After Diana heard what Billy was saying, her curiosity was aroused, and she ran to Billy's side pretending to be Venus, and dragged Billy to ask, quickly, "What will I look like in the future?" "It must be one heroine." Billy nodded and said very cooperatively, "Yes, you will indeed become a superhero in the future and be admired by mankind." Diana immediately confirmed with excitement, "Really? I really became a hero. You know, defeating Ares and becoming a hero, but Diana's dream since childhood. Now Billy tells Diana that her dream will come true in the future, how could she not be excited?" Diana's happiness came so suddenly, it made her a little unbelievable. Billy continued to say half-jokingly, "Definitely it is true, and you also own an art collection in London, Ying Country. It is said that there are countless treasures in it." When he said this, Billy was still a little envious. Rich people can afford to open art collections. Diana asked curiously, "Art collection? Why do I have an art collection?" She felt a little puzzled about this. When she grew up, she had never been interested in art. The Amazon warrior was only interested in defending peace. Billy couldn't help being asked. He also wanted to know why, but he wouldn't show it. "Because you like it, you have to know that everything is possible in the future." "Oh." Diane nodded his head seemingly understandably. Billy directly changed the subject and said, "You didn't have a good rest with your mother last night. Would you like to sleep for a while? The quality of the big bed in the bedroom is not bad. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more."